everyone, and happy Monday from the opening drive on 101 ESPN in St. Louis, where it's 7 o'clock. Your time check brought to you by Clarkson Jewelers, an officially licensed Rolex jeweler. Brandon Kiley, BK, in for Brooke, who is still on her honeymoon. Matthew Rocchio is here. I'm Randy Carricker. Great to have you with us. How was the weekend, Mr. Kiley?
It was fantastic, Randy. It was my first Father's Day, so we get to celebrate that with Luca. Had a very good one. How was yours?
It was good. Played a little golf on Saturday. Did a little brunch yesterday.
Nice.
Everything was. Watched some golf yesterday afternoon after we found the Cardinals on Roku, which is
my father-in-law. I come over to his place yesterday. It's like 2:30, 3 o'clock, and normally I walk in. Cardinals game's already on. I look at him. I say, Keith, you gonna turn on the Cardinals game? He said, I couldn't find it. I don't know where it is, BK. Where is it? I was like, it's on Roku, man. He's like, well, I've got a Roku TV. I don't know where it is. It's like, well, go to the homepage and then press play. We'll get it all set up for you. I got you. So we got to take care of it.
And all those Roku games are on MLB.TV, too. I was just, but it's not hard to find. You just have to actually go to the phone and find out where it is.
You got to figure it out first. It's still a learning process.
And we still don't have Peacock. We don't have Peacock anymore for Sunday morning baseball. And I guess TBS doesn't do Sunday baseball right now. I don't know if they do or not. Baseball's got to do a better job.
There are so many different packages at this point. Like during this NFL season, I know I'm going to get to a game, and it's just going to be like a random Tuesday, and there's going to be a football game on. And I'm going to be like, okay, let's play the roulette game with the remote right now to find out which of the 17 different either channels or platforms this game could be on. It's unbelievable.
On Roku yesterday, the Cardinals knocked off the Cubs 2-1. Pedro Pages, 2-run homer. Miles Michaelis, terrific, BK. 6 1/3, 4 hits, 1 run, 5 strikeouts. And after some rugged starts after the start of the season, Miles Michaelis has been terrific.
He's been awesome, and the Cardinals' top 4 pitchers in general, generally speaking, been really good over the last month or so. Lance Lynn, in his last 5 starts, has a 2.9 ERA. Kyle Gibson, 2.2. Michaelis, 2.6. Sonny Gray, 2.9. They've all been every bit as good as you could have asked for, and then some. Kyle Gibson, man, one of the best signings of the offseason. And at the time, I was like, hey, this is a good signing by the Cardinals. I like it. I don't know if you need both Lance Lynn and Kyle Gibson. Felt like a little much. Maybe they could get a number 2 starter there, but they're doing what the Cardinals were asking for, and Michaelis is one of those guys that felt like a swing player for them this season. If you get the good version of Michaelis from 2 years ago, it's going to be a pretty good rotation. If you don't, and that's what it felt like we were going to get over the first 6-7 starts of the season, this is going to be a nightmare because now you've got a bunch of back-end starters and Sonny Gray.
Right.
He's starting to fill in that middle for them right now.
And the big question is going to be, once you get to crunch time, when the weather changes in September and hopefully October, is this staff capable of stacking up with the other playoff staffs? But there's a long ways to go. We've got a couple of months before the trade deadline. And the Cardinals are in Miami tonight to open a series, and they hold right now the second wild card. The Cardinals just need to do their business. They didn't do it against Colorado last week. They need to do it against a team like the Marlins this week.
Yeah, they're not a great team. This is what it looks like when you've got an average baseball team. They're going to beat up on some teams. They're going to lose to others that they shouldn't. I don't know if you guys saw over the weekend another rough one for the San Diego Padres. They're a mirror image at times of what the Cardinals have been so far this season. San Francisco's not very good. Nobody's taking off with this race. Nobody. They're all right in that 500 to 2 games below 500. So if anybody has a good week, they're going to look like they're taking off. And then, realistically speaking, they're not. They're going to fall back down to earth because all of these teams are pretty average. It was a fun weekend up at Wrigley, though, man.
Oh, yeah, it was great.
It was fun baseball. It was, generally speaking, mostly pretty crisp baseball. The Cardinals played some really good defense. That win on Friday, one of the more entertaining wins for the Cardinals all season long. Pedro Pages with a couple of big homers over the weekend. Again, nobody's trying to sell you on this team being great. But they're playing some fun, inspired baseball right now. They're winning close games, and that's what they got to do.
Right, and if you can just get to the finish line, then all of a sudden it becomes a team that's playing best rather than the best team. We see that year after year after year. The NBA Finals resume tonight and maybe conclude tonight. Dallas is at Boston for Game 5. The Celtics lead the series 3-1, and they can wrap it up. Although Dallas did show themselves to be dominant in Game 4. Seems to happen all the time, though. If you get down 3-0 in a series, you are the most desperate that you're ever going to be, and that's where Dallas was on Friday night.
They were, and their secondary pieces finally showed up.
Yep.
Players not named Luka or Kyrie finished 14 of 23 from behind the arc in game number 4. If you get that kind of a performance from your others, you're going to play pretty well. I'm always concerned about the secondary pieces when you go on the road.
Yep.
They generally speaking play better at home. So I would expect the Celtics to be able to shut this thing down sooner rather than later. But for at least one game, Dallas showed up. It was good to see. They needed one of those kinds of performances.
Pre-game tonight from TD Garden at 6:30 and the action at about 7:30 here on 101 ESPN. And then tomorrow night, we might see the conclusion of the Stanley Cup final. You've got the two championship series pretty much mirroring each other, but Edmonton is Dallas in the NHL.
Yeah.
They were down 3-0 and then just absolutely drilled Florida 8-1 on Saturday night.
I've got a Randy stat for you. All right.
Yeah.
Connor McDavid over the weekend broke Wayne Gretzky's record for most assists in a single postseason. He now has 32 this postseason. He has more assists this postseason than the postseason leader in total points from 16 of the last 18 years. The
Amazing.
only two that had more points than he has assists this postseason were Kucherov in 2020 and Malkin in 2009. The only other players in postseason history to have at least 38 points, which is where McDavid is at right now, Wayne Gretzky and Mario Lemieux. Those are the only two other guys that have ever done this. We're seeing an all-time great postseason despite his team very likely losing in the Stanley Cup final. What a run by Connor McDavid.
Yeah, he's superb, and it's just one of those situations where they need some magical things to happen to get him over the top. A Jordan Binnington type event would
they're
help
just
them
not
get
getting
over
that
the
from
top.
Skinner.
No, it's not happening for them. So Game 5 is tomorrow night, and that'll be heard here on 101 ESPN. In MLS action over the weekend, St. Louis City clean sheeted by Dallas FC 2-0. Matthew Rocky was just shaking his head no. City outplayed Dallas in just about every possible metric except for goals. Outshot them 21-10. 8-4.
Randy's favorite, expected goals.
Yeah.
Big fan of those.
Doubled up Dallas in offensive numbers in the final third and pitting them in their own half for the majority of the game, none of which matters as City falls to 3-9-5 with just 18 points through 17 games. Why are you shaking your head no, Matthew?
I mean, that's like, okay, so probably in 6 of the 9 draws and probably in 2 of the 5 losses, you can basically give that rundown, which is they outshot the team, they had more shots on target, they pinned the team back in their defensive hack for the majority of the time, and none of it matters because they lost the game or drew the game 0-0 or 1-1. That's been now the case for half of the games, and that's annoying because you want to have some positivity. It's kind of like when the Cardinals drop a bad game, when you're like, well, I know they're not this bad because every number tells me that they could have won that game fairly easily if just 2 things go their way, and that's where City's sitting now. In that, I mean, you look back at that game on Saturday and you break down every chance they had, and like 3 of the chances they had that went wide are exactly the kind of shots that go in last year. It's just everything's breaking against them, and it's really bad right now. And by the way, you also lost 3 players across that game. In Celio Pompeu, probably for the rest of the year with a torn up ankle. You lost Joachim Nielsen, who pulled up with a hammy injury. He's probably going to be out for a little bit. And Tim Parker picked up a yellow, so he's going to be out suspended for accumulation for the next game. So you lost 3 players. And by the way, you play 3 games this week because you have a game on Wednesday.
And Randy, you know, I'm one of the nerds. I believe in the numbers, right? The problem with soccer numbers is that they don't play enough games and they don't have enough goal-scoring events, so to speak, like the shots on goal, to be able to average out over time. Like, you can believe in all of the numbers and what they're telling you, but when you get 6, 7, 8 shots on goal, you're gonna play the law of the averages. And when you're not playing more than a couple of, like 1, maybe 2 games in any given week, it's not like baseball. Baseball, you could have 30 batted ball events in every single game, and you're playing 6 times a week. So yeah, I'm going to play the law of the averages. Eventually, those batted balls that are bad luck one day, they're going to start dropping for you. That's not always the case in soccer. So it's not as, the analytics do matter in soccer, but not as much as they probably do in baseball.
And it's always something, right? As an old St. Louis football Cardinals fan, I guess I still have that PTSD watching games that they lost on a field goal at the end, and you'd see Rushing yards, Cardinals had more. Passing yards, Cardinals had more. Every statistic, the Cardinals had the advantage until you get down to the bottom and you see turnovers. You know?
And that's the thing is there's not a game-breaking stat from this game from City, because even the one thing that they're really bad at, which is putting shots on target, they had their most shots on target of the entire season in that game with 8 shots on target, and again that doubled up Dallas. And even all the other number, like it's just like the numbers they beat them all in the final third that I referenced there. It's just like they're putting more passes into the final third, they're making more passes in the final third, they're touching the ball more often in the opponent's box. All of these things tell you, well, if you have the ball more often in front of the opponent's net, you should probably be scoring more. And so it's not working right now, and the team's just jointed, and now they're super injured. So
finishing is important.
Have fun on Wednesday.
Yep.
When you play Kroenke's team.
Oh, you better win that one. Better win that one. Speaking of Kroenke's team, his well, not his, it was George's quarterback was in the house yesterday at the Dome. Kurt Warner and Tom Brady both on hand. And the Birmingham Stallions outdueled well, it wasn't really a duel, was it? Yeah. The Birmingham Stallions crushed the San Antonio Brahmas 25-0, another clean sheet. 27,000 tickets were distributed. Many fewer than that were actually utilized. And Birmingham showing themselves to be the spring football juggernaut.
A three-peat, Randy. A true three-peat. You don't see this in football very often. I'll get into that a little bit later on. I do want to ask you about this because it came out yesterday. The UFL is going to be playing games primarily on Fridays next season. Now, they did not say specifically how many games will be affected, but, quote, many, end quote, games will be affected on this. If a lot of the Battlehawks games end up being on Fridays instead of Saturdays or Sundays, how do you think that's going to affect attendance?
I think it'll affect attendance dramatically negatively.
Yep.
I think you need to play late Saturday afternoon or late Sunday afternoon here to really make it work. Granted, they drew 30,000, but the crowds weren't for the 11 o'clock in the morning games near what they were for the 3 o'clock. If you are the UFL and you're smart, you avoid having St. Louis play Friday nights at all costs.
Yep.
Put the other teams that don't draw anyway on Friday night and allow St. Louis to continue to draw their crowds.
That seems like the smart move. We'll see how intelligent this league is in terms of those kinds of decisions. Yesterday, it kind of made me sad to watch this game and to see the crowd that was there. I don't blame anybody for not going.
No.
It's not your team. When they announced what the attendance was, I was like, yeah. A lot of Battlehawks fans that had season tickets that were like, we'll go ahead and get tickets ahead of time just in case, you know. We'll hold our spot there at the stadium. And the spot was held. It was indeed held there.
And finally, at the U.S. Open, Bryson DeChambeau wins over Rory McIlroy, who bogeyed 3 of the last 4 holes. Rory McIlroy had hit his first 496 putts from inside of 3 feet this season. Then in 2 of the last 3 holes, he misses 2 of them to lose the tournament.
Is this the clutch gene that we used to talk about?
I think it is.
Is that what it's coming down to there? Is Bryson DeChambeau liked? Like, can we now say that he is somebody that is popular on the tour at this point?
I think so,
Because that wasn't the case 3, 4, 5 years ago. He was public enemy number 1, and then everything happens with Liv, and now he's liked. I'm confused. What did I miss here, Randy?
I think there's a couple of things. Number 1, yesterday, it was jingoism. It was the USA, USA, USA chant. It really was. That was part of it. The other thing is, I think people realized that in the set 2 with Brooks Koepka, that it was really Koepka that was the Richard and not necessarily Bryson DeChambeau.
How did people not see that all along?
I don't know.
This is what I don't understand.
Yeah.
Like, of course Koepka, he was the too cool for school guy. He doesn't like golf. He's just good at it. Like, I don't understand how we just now, after all of this time, were able to arrive there. And I say that as the most casual of casual golf observers.
I wonder if he would be as popular, though, if we saw him all the time. We only see him for majors with DeChambeau, and I wonder if the people like him because absence makes the heart grow fonder. And with his situation, he seems like a really nice guy who wants to be liked, who's doing the right things. You know, he's signing autographs between holes for handicapped children.
He's playing to the crowd.
He really did.
I don't think I've ever. I can't remember the last time I saw a golfer in a Ryder Cup event or what's the thing in Scottsdale? I'm blanking. Waste management, where he's like walking between holes and he's going like this to the crowd as he and then you had the moment where the guy stole the ball and he tried to throw at the kid, and that was a big kind of breakthrough. And then he's walking through the sea of fans with the trophy yesterday, and people were like chanting his name and stuff like that. And the thing I have in my memory of like the enduring memory of everyone hates Bryson was literally the interview where Bryson walks behind Koepka, and Koepka sees him out of his peripheral vision and just like snorts.
Yep.
Yeah.
And the change from that to that, it's incredible.
I can't think of much like this in sports.
In terms of turning around the perception?
It's rare.
Yeah, he's been able to do it. And by the way, Tiger was hated for a long time. When Tiger was great, people didn't want Tiger to win. And then once he ran into all his problems, and his perception changed. I think it happens more in golf. And by the way, I think yesterday, if Rory had won, I think there would have been more adulation for Rory than there was for Bryson DeChambeau.
Yeah, Rory has pretty much always been liked, though, or at least likable, if nothing else. Maybe Kyrie kind of going through something similar right now. I mean,
growing up.
Kyrie,
that's a good one.
I was not exactly Kyrie's biggest supporter over the recent seasons. Loved his game when he was with LeBron, and then something went haywire for him. Some wires got crossed, and there was like a 5-year stretch where Kyrie had to go through some stuff. And now it seems, we'll see if it's true, but it seems like he's kind of come out on the other end of it, and he seems to be in a better place. But he's probably the closest thing that I can think about of a guy that was genuinely disliked that became more liked.
He was able to laugh at himself about not being liked in Boston. He said, "Yeah, I'm kind of on the outs here," and everybody laughs with him. So I think that is part of it with him. Is sometimes you just have to, rather than take everything so seriously. And by the way, it didn't help Kyrie Irving to say, he didn't say it in words, but he certainly voiced with his actions, wanting out of Cleveland with LeBron James because he wasn't the man.
He said, I want my own team.
Yeah. Right. And then you go to Boston and you get your own team. And
you lose.
Yeah.
You lose, and then you're on the bench and you have the nose stuff going on. Like, it was a lot.
Yeah, it was. We're off and running here on this edition of the Opening Drive. BK and Randy. BK in for Brooke, who will return on Wednesday from her honeymoon. Coming up next, 3 things we love from the weekend here on 101 ESPN. Hey, if you or your offspring are thinking about college and don't know exactly where they want to go yet, have them visit Lindenwood University. Have them give Lindenwood a chance. You can set up an appointment at lindenwood.edu. But Lindenwood was founded in 1832, and they've been educating the St. Louis region for almost 200 years. They award over $30 million in scholarships and grants annually, and they have a mission, and it says Lindenwood University, real experience, real success. And so many people from Lindenwood in our area have had that real experience that has led to real success in the real world. Lindenwood has special tuition discounts for military members, veterans, and their spouses and children, and you will love the Division I atmosphere, just the fun aspect of Lindenwood University. Again, if you are a youngster that's looking for college, or maybe you're a veteran that's looking for a great place to go to school, Lindenwood University is the place. I went there. Danny Mack went there. You'll love Lindenwood University. Learn more now and set up an appointment for a tour at lindenwood.edu. All right, time for 3 things we loved about the weekend on the opening drive on 101 ESPN.
Number 3.
And to BK, it was Father's Day weekend. I had the opportunity to get out with my kids, Patrick and Katie, and play a little golf on Saturday. Always good to play golf with the kids. I kind of forced them to play high school golf because I thought that Katie could get a scholarship, and Patrick, I wanted him to do something. And so they both played golf in high school. Neither have reached the status of being playing for the U.S. Open in their respective genders.
Maybe soon, Randy.
But it was fun. They both are... they're good enough so that they can get out and keep the ball moving, and we can get by in a reasonable amount of time. It was just great hanging out, doing just hanging out and being social with the kids.
There's nothing that beats being with the little guy, or for you, the little less little
Bigger
guy and gal at this point in their lives. I was able to hang out with Luca over the weekend. It was my first Father's Day, of course. There's nothing else like it, Randy.
No.
There's just nothing else like it. And eventually I know I'm going to be able to sleep again. So that's a plus as well.
That's a good thing.
I wish that I golfed growing up, because then I would have at least some of those skills at this point in my life. I did not do any of the golfing. I have been on the links, I think, 3 times in my entire life. Went poorly all 3.
Sure.
So, one of these days.
It goes poorly a lot, trust me. And one thing about young Luca, just keep the camera going. I always say that to young fathers, because in about 2 weeks, you'll be saying, like I am, next month he turns 30.
Yep. It's insane. It's absolutely. I can't believe he turns 1 in 3 weeks now.
It's amazing.
It goes like that. Yeah. It's crazy. Days are long. The weeks/year have gone by really, really quick. All right, my number 3. This Caitlin Clark thing, man. I think every time I come on to this damn show in the morning, I'm with you guys, and there's a new storyline. Now we've got a clothesline from Angel Reese, and there's like a discussion, a long thought-out think pieces that are happening about what does this mean? It means it was a hard foul.
Yeah.
We've been playing basketball for, 100 years? We've seen a lot of these kinds of fouls. Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark have a genuine rivalry. Mm-hmm. It feels kind of like and now, not to the same degree. I understand, listeners. Don't text in 314-399-9646. I'm not comparing them to them.
I know where you're going here.
The rivalry kind of feels like Larry Bird versus Magic Johnson. Like, they didn't like each other. Mm-hmm. They went up against each other in college and then eventually into the pros, and it became a thing of, who's number 1 in the league, right? They were always battling that out, and there was a lot of underlying stuff. One of them was white, the other guy was black. Mm-hmm. And so there's a lot of that's taking place with Clark and with Angel Reese right now. So every time these two meet, there is this massive fanfare for the game, which is good for basketball, good for the WNBA. But my God, man, we don't need to make this stuff more than what it is. It was a hard foul. She got back up. She went to shoot her free throws. It was called a flagrant. There's nothing that we can talk about here that's all that interesting, so we got to make it something more than it is.
I really like the Magic and Bird comp. I thought you were going to go with Bad Boy Pistons against Michael,
There's
though.
Some of that, too.
The Chicago Sky are like the Bad Boy Pistons. They're just putting her through the ringer, and she's going to have to find a way to beat them.
Number 2.
BK, I don't think there's anything like Cards Cubs at Wrigley and having 3-day games, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and especially when it turns out that the Cardinals win 2 out of the 3. And we talked earlier in the Open about the Cardinals starting pitching, aside from Andre Palante, who is their number 5 starter. But terrific pitching out of the Cardinals starters, as you mentioned, nice, crisp games, and you couldn't have had better days. What a great weekend for Cardinal fans to be at Wrigley.
It was awesome. It was a lot of fun to see it out there, and you were able to see some fun broadcasts as well. Yesterday, you got the Roku. You had, if you wanted to watch, Wayno on the broadcast on Saturday as well. And that's where I wanted to go to. Rocc, I forgot to tell you about this, but for number 2, I'm going to call for the Adam Wainwright comments from before the game on Saturday. Randy, you know this as well as anybody because you used to talk to him each and every week right here on the opening drive. Adam Wainwright is the single most optimistic human being I think I've ever heard talk on television or on radio, especially when he's talking about his Cardinals. And so when I heard this prior to the game on Saturday, I was thinking to myself, all right, If Adam Wainwright is saying you need a number 2 starter, you really need a number 2 starter.
I have a lot of confidence in the guys they have in there right now. They also have Steven Matz, who's got 50 pitches tomorrow and a rehab start. He's coming back soon. But I still would like to see them go out and get a number 2 starter. I mean, no pressure on Mozeliak, but I know their team over there would like to see that also. But if Steven Matz comes back, he's more than capable of performing at that level. The guys they've added over there, Kyle Gibson, Lance Lynn, and Sonny Gray, have been amazing at.
Randy. He knows what he's doing there.
Yeah.
Hey, the players over there would really like to see a number 2 starter, but I don't want to put any pressure on Mo. Okay, cat's out of the bag.
Well, and here's the thing, and as appreciative as we are of what Gray and Gibson and Lynn have done to this point, if you go into a series like you did 2 years ago against Philadelphia, and you're going against Suarez, Wheeler, Nola, do you really feel comfortable? Or would you like to have another guy to go against Wheeler or Ranger Suarez? Come on. But let's just look at Wheeler and Nola. Would you like to have another guy to go head-to-head against those guys? Absolutely. And the Cardinals, I think, especially with the way the postseason is set up now, and I think they're pretty safe in assuming that they're going to be a wild card team, you're going to need 4 at least. So, yeah, they need to go out and get another front-of-the-rotation guy.
So I don't know if you saw this piece earlier today. It just came out this morning, but Jim Bowden had a piece out today on 5 trades he would like to see across Major League Baseball this year. And we know, this is just fodder. It is what it is. But he brought up a potential Cardinals trade. He said, hey, I don't think the Cardinals should be buyers, but they're steadfast that they're going to be buyers. So if they are, what about Eric Fetty for the Cardinals? And he proposed that the Cardinals could send Gordon Graceffo, AAA pitcher, who might be able to be a reliever for the Cardinals eventually, but he's definitely stalled out in his development, and Cooper Jerpy, their former first-round arm that has this funky delivery. He's been really good so far this season. Would you trade those 2 guys for Eric Fetty? He said that's a package that maybe would work for both sides. Is Eric Fetty good enough in your mind? He's been great this year.
Yeah, but is he a front-of-the-rotation guy? I don't think he is.
I think he could be a 3. I just don't, he feels very Cardinals-y, and that could you squint and see it working as a number 2? I guess.
It feels like a trade that Jim Bowden would have made.
Touché. Mic drop. There's nothing more to say.
Number 1.
Well played.
BK, I love the drama of majors, and I wanted Rory to win yesterday, but the drama of Sunday afternoon, the back 9 at a major, is unmatched. Yesterday just dripped with drama. The way that Rory missed the short putts, bogeying 3 of the last 4 holes after he had a 2-shot lead with 3 to go. And DeChambeau didn't do it a whole lot better. He parred number 18 to wind up winning the tournament. But it is amazing. We talk about pressure in sports, and the pressure that strikes when you are in that theater in the last 3 holes of a major, it's got to be almost unbearable. And I'll give the statistic again. 496 for 496 was Rory McIlroy on putts inside of 4 feet so far this year. In 3 holes, he misses 2 of those, a 3.9 and a 3-foot 9-inch and a 2-foot 6-inch to lose the tournament.
There are certain aspects of sports that you can see pressure get to guys. Putting is one of those. Free throws is one of those. Field goals in an NFL game is another. And then I think, generally speaking, the 9th inning of a baseball game where you're having to close out a big game, you can see the pressure get to certain guys because those 3 outs, we've heard it from a million different relievers, they're different. They just feel different. There's more pressure. You could feel it with Rory yesterday.
Yeah.
The pressure got to him a little bit, and it is a pressure cooker whenever you get into those spots. Yeah. All right, final thing here for me. My number 1 thing from the sports weekend. I love Charles Barkley. I love what he's doing here. I respect what he's doing here, and I can see what he's doing here. Give this a listen.
I've talked to all the other networks, but I ain't going nowhere other than TNT. But I have made the decision myself, no matter what happens, next year is going to be my last year on television. And I just want to say thank you to my NBA family. You guys been great to me. My heart is full with joy and gratitude. But I'm going to pass the baton at the end of next year. I hope the NBA stays with TNT. But for me personally, I wanted you guys to hear from me because I'm not doing any more interviews. Don't y'all be calling me. But next year, I'm going to just retire after 25 years, and I just want to say thank you, and I wanted y'all to hear from me first.
Liar! He's lying. I don't believe him for a second, Randy. This dude makes more than $10 million a year to sit on television a couple of nights of the week and to have all of the fans bask in the glory that is Charles Barkley. He loves that. You think he's giving that up just because the NBA is leaving TNT? No. We're going to see Charles Barkley on a broadcast somewhere. It might be his own broadcast that he's doing as a private entity, and he starts his production company, and it's Inside the NBA, produced by Charles Barkley on YouTube, right? We'll see him somewhere. I don't know where it will be, what it will look like, but Charles Barkley ain't going away. This dude loves the attention too much.
That's the thing. He's going to be talking.
Yeah.
And he just needs to have people to listen. So whatever it is, it might not be on regular television, but it'll be somewhere that he'll be talking and generating a response. By the way, he's a regular on PTI. I can't imagine that if Kornheiser and Wilbon call him that he wouldn't go on with those guys. So, yeah, that's a great call.
$10 million a year, Randy. Charles Barkley likes his money, and I don't blame him for liking his money. Good for him. He likes golfing. Golfing is an expensive hobby. You know what helps pay for that expensive hobby? Making $10 million a year. Yeah. This is a great negotiation tactic by him. Hey, guys, I'm retiring. Don't call me. Don't ask me anymore. I'm out. What if we gave you $17 million, though, Sir Charles? Would that be good enough for you?
Money? Randy, you also just made me think of the scenario where no one says no, I bet, to Michael Wilbon. I bet, like, if Wilbon texts you, like, hey, can you come on PTI? No, Mike, I'm not doing that. All right, we'll call you at 3:30. No, Mike, I'm not doing that. All right, we'll call you.
Talk to you then.
I feel like that's how those conversations would go with Wilbon at this point.
That is 3 things we loved about the weekend here on 101 ESPN. Coming up, the Cardinals are ahead of the Cubs in the standings again. Big picture, are the Cardinals just better at winning than the Cubs? That's next on 101 ESPN. We'll have highs in the 90s all week in St. Louis, and that means you need to make sure that your air conditioner is good to go for the summer. With the hot St. Louis heat headed our way, you need to schedule that air conditioner tune-up now with Hoffman Brothers. When's the last time you changed your air filter? A friendly reminder from my friends at Hoffman Brothers that now's the time to get that tune-up taken care of. Don't wait until it stops working. You need your air conditioner when it's hot here in St. Louis. And the maintenance on your air conditioner once a year is just as important as regular oil changes in your car. Call today or schedule online at HoffmanBros.com, HOFFMANN, HoffmanBros.com. You can call or text them for an appointment at 314-664-3011, 314-664-3011. Hoffman Brothers, an independent American Standard heating and air conditioning dealer, and they're going to come out. They're friendly and knowledgeable salespeople, and technicians are going to take a look at your air conditioner, make sure that everything is good, and they're going to tell you what the lifespan of your air conditioner might be so that you can be ready when you need a new one. Hoffman Brothers is the best at what they do in St. Louis. Again, make the appointment online at HoffmanBros.com or give them a call or give them a text, 314-664-3011. It's Hoffman Brothers.
This is Rocky with your Sports Center update, driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. The Cardinals take 2 out of 3 in Chicago, getting a win yesterday over the Cubs 2-1. Pedro Pages with a 2-run homer. That's the entire Cardinals run line there. And Miles Michaelis with another great start, 6 1/3, 4 hits, 1 run, and 5 strikeouts. Dallas and Boston tonight. The Boston Celtics can win this series. They lead 3-1 after a rough loss over the weekend. You can catch that game right here on 101 ESPN. Pregame starts at 6:30. That is your Sports Center update, driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
And driven softly toward right. Suzuki broke back. That might drop. But it will. It's off the glove. Arenado around third. He's going to score. The Cardinals take a 2-0 lead. Fly ball hit toward left. Donovan racing toward the warning track. He's got it. What a way to end Father's Day Sunday. The St. Louis Cardinals take 2 out of 3 at Wrigley Field. 2-1 is the final score.
A win on Friday for your St. Louis Cardinals at Wrigley, and you heard from Chip Caray, who will join us later here on 101 ESPN, as the Cardinals took yesterday's finale and take 2 out of 3. A couple of weeks ago, BK, Paul Goldschmidt texted Adam Wainwright and said, we're going to win this division. Very, very definitive about it. This is when the Cardinals were in the depths of the 7-game losing streak and were about 7 games under 500. But throughout that streak, the Cardinals have outwardly appeared confident. They've talked about how great the clubhouse is, how nobody's gotten down. Everybody thinks, okay, we're a good baseball team. We're going to be fine. It's just a long season. As for the Cubs, they're 16-26 since May 1st. They haven't won a 3-game series since taking 2 of 3 from the Pirates May 10th through 12th. So they're 5 weeks now since they have won a 3-game series. And you passed this quote from Jamison Taillon along yesterday. He said, quote, it's been a tough go. I think the best way to look at it is you can start a better streak and you can turn the year around today. It feels like we haven't been able to turn the page off of this tough streak. It is what it is. It's happened. And now it's time for us to move past and try to find a way to climb out of it. The Cardinals have been steadfastly confident. And here's the Cubs saying, we're going to try to find a way to get out of it. And the Cardinals, obviously, even though they have struggled over the course of the last year, I wonder if that tradition of winning benefits the Cardinals.
I think maybe to a degree. I just think there's so few guys that now are a part of the team that have been a part of that tradition of winning. I don't know if it's like the long-standing, like because they're wearing the birds on the bat, that is what allows them to now continue to win. So much as it is, this year, for whatever reason, they have avoided what happened last year. They have avoided going into the abyss of we can't get ourselves out of this. And the Cubs feel like they're in that right now, where they can't find the bottom. There is no bottoming out. It's just, it continues to get worse and worse and worse. Their afternoon show host up in Chicago, his name's Danny Parkins, he tweeted during the game on Friday, like, if you don't score, I can't blame anybody else. Like, there's one thing that you can look at, and you can see this is the problem for the Cubs. They can't score runs, Randy. They can't find a way to scratch anything across. They're not hitting for any power. There's just nothing there from their offense. And you look at the pieces and you say to yourselves, they should be better than this. And so people will start pointing fingers at this or that or that. Well, Craig Counsell is their manager. And I don't think a whole lot of people are going to be like, well, Craig Counsell is the problem. That guy had no success. No, you can't do that. He's an unbelievable manager. He came in for a reason because they thought they were close. This was the year where they take that step from a year ago and become now legitimate contenders in the National League. They've got the pitching. They just don't have the offense. And that's where I will give credit where it's due to the Cardinals, despite Nolan Arenado and Paul Goldschmidt looking like a shell of themselves for almost the entirety of this season so far. Through 70 games, they've both been below average. They're finding ways to win, man. They are finding ways to win, whether that's scratching across runs or getting good starting pitching. Defense has been helpful for most of the season, other than that weird stretch where they were having errors seemingly every other night. It's just they're finding ways to win, and I'll give them a lot of credit for that. That's something the Cubs haven't been able to do.
And interestingly with the Cubs, when you sign Craig Counsell to an $8 million a year contract. You figure, okay, they're going to give him players, right? And they go out and get Eminaga, and they made the trade for Michael Bush, but they didn't add any real impact offensively. And I'm not including Cody Bellinger here. I always assumed that Bellinger would be back with them. But the easiest bats to find are corners, right? The left or right field, first or third base. And they, aside from Michael Bush, they didn't really acquire anybody. And you're expecting Patrick Wisdom to be the guy. Ian Happ is a nice player, but he's not an impact hitter. You need somebody with a little oomph, and they just don't have that player. And they brought up Pete Crow Armstrong. I don't believe he's an impact player this year. I don't know if they have that impact 3, 4, 5 hitter coming up anywhere.
I think they're doing what the Cardinals thought they were doing, where we're going to rely on the young guys.
Yep.
The young guys that came in and showed us signs from a year ago. The Cardinals believed, all right, now it's takeoff time. Walker, you're here. You're going to be good. Donovan, you're going to be good. Gorman, you're going to be like, all of these guys were just expecting the next step of whatever your careers look like. I think the Cubs did the same thing, where they looked at Mike Tauchman. Well, you're going to take another step. Christopher Morel, you're going to take another step. Nico Horner, Michael Bush, Amaya, he came up a couple of years ago, and it's like, okay, this guy's going to be a really good catcher. He's going to be a good hitting catcher. Just hasn't really worked to the degree that they expected it to. And so you have all of these young guys, and you mentioned Pete Crow Armstrong, who was one of their top prospects. And you're thinking, okay, this could come together. And if it does, it could be really, really good, because you got the middle of the order with Bellinger, Suzuki, and Happ. Sounds similar. The Cubs and the Cardinals in this way are mirror images of one another. They're both expecting young players to take that next step. And for the Cardinals, while it's been frustrating and it has not worked for everybody, Mason Wynn has become the guy that they expected him to. Nolan Gorman, despite like a 200 batting average on the season, is on pace to hit 35 to 40 home runs this year. So they've had some of their young guys produce as expected. The Cubs haven't seen that. And until they get those guys to take the next step, this is what it's going to look like. It's going to look like an offense that is hugely inconsistent.
At the moment, the Cubs 4 games under 500. The Cardinals are at 500. And obviously, we have this conversation because the Cardinals just took 2 of 3 for them. And Imanaga is the one win day guy for them. They can count on a win when he pitches, but because of their lack of offensive proficiency, it's about the only day they can count on getting a win. That's BK. I'm Randy. Coming up, get your text into the Air Comfort Service text line, 314-399-9646, 314-399.
Yo-ho!
He's not playing.
I'll do everything else with you, Randy.
Take it or leave it is coming your way on 101 ESPN.
Underdog Fantasy has your new way to play with their new Pick'em product right now active in Missouri, Pick'em Champions. You just pick 2 to 5 players from at least 2 different teams. You select higher or lower on the stat projections. You pick your entry fee. You're going to be entering a game alongside other underdogs. As long as you hit your entry, you're walking away with your winnings. Let's build an entry today. I'm going to combine a little bit of Cardinals with tonight's NBA Finals game. We're going to go Sonny Gray lower than 4.5 hits allowed. Jason Tatum higher than 43.5 points, rebounds, and assists. And Luka Doncic lower than 50.5 points, rebounds, and assists as the Dallas Star has gotten a big number. So again, lower on Luka's points, rebounds, and assists, higher on Tatum's, and we're going to go lower on 4.5 hits for Sonny Gray against the Marlins. That's Underdog Fantasy. It's super easy to play and even easier to get started. You can take your entry and you can build on it right now. You just go to their easy-to-use mobile app or to UnderdogFantasy.com. Sign up with the promo code ROCC, and Underdog's going to give you a mystery special pick to use on your first Pick'em entry and a deposit offer. That's Underdog Fantasy promo code ROCC to claim your new customer special of a mystery player pick and your deposit offer. Must be 18 plus and present in the state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Concern with your play call. When you're a gambler, visit www.ncpgambling.org.
Take it or leave it.
Want to say something? Put it out there. If you like it, you can take it. If you don't, send it right back.
Get your text into 314-399-9646 and give us your take it or leave it.
Brought to you by Gloria Lou Realty. Visit GloriaHasTheBuyers.com and start packing.
That's my final offer. Take it or leave it.
BK, Matthew, and Randy. It is the opening drive on 101 ESPN. Time for Take It or Leave It. Get your text into the Air Comfort Service text line 314-399-9646. 314-399. Yo-ho! Thank you, Matthew, for participating. BK, okay, yesterday Mookie Betts gets hit by a pitch, and he is suffering now from either a broken metatarpal or metacarpal. Dave Roberts didn't know. Yeah. He said one of those two, but he'll be out 6 to 8 weeks. Take it or leave it. In that time frame, the Dodgers only go 500 without Mookie Betts.
Ooh. Yamamoto also on the injured list right now. We don't know how long Glasnow is going to be able to keep this up because he's always good for a couple of IL stints over the course of the year. Despite all of that, though, they're the Dodgers. I'm going to say leave it. Randy, I made the mistake last year of being like, oh, the Dodgers can't do it this year. Look at the rotation. Look at the roster. And they ended up winning like 100 games. So I'm going to go ahead and say leave it. I do think they will still be a good team. There's also so many bad teams in the National League that they'll be able to beat up against a good number of them. I haven't looked at their exact schedule, but I have to imagine they'll see a decent number of the bad teams. So I'll say leave it. I think they still end up going above 500.
I think if he's out for 6 weeks, they go 30-30.
Wow.
Yeah. But that being said, I think it's more going to be because of the pitching. Like you say, there's a limit to what Tyler Glasnow can provide. Yamamoto being out, they just got Buehler back. Bobby Miller is coming back this week, I believe. And I think their pitching is going to have to round into form. It's an interesting lineup because you do have Betts, Freeman, Ohtani, Smith, but the rest of their lineup is not great. And I'm interested to see how they effectively, if they effectively, replace Mookie Betts.
I think they have to trade for a shortstop.
I think so, too. I'm looking at them right now. I don't know who they get, though.
That's the thing. Like, none of these teams have the player that you'd be looking for because the bad teams are bad for a reason. Yep. Most of them are really bad with very few players to offer. Miami doesn't have a shortstop for you. The Rockies aren't trading their shortstop. It's one of the only good young players that they have on their roster. I don't know where they get one, but they might have to make that kind of Godfather offer that prize somebody away from a team that you wouldn't expect.
A team that they were tied to earlier, and I know they're playing well, but they aren't averse to trading people while they're doing well, is the Milwaukee Brewers with Adames.
Yeah. I don't know that you can make that deal right now. I mean, you're so far and away the best team in this division right now.
Yep. But you did get a shortstop back in the
it's just such a bad look for that clubhouse. If you trade Willie Adames, you're waving the white flag and saying you guys aren't real contenders. Yeah, you have the third best record in the National League. We don't care. And they could have the second best record. Like the Brewers after Mookie Betts, like whenever he does return, the Brewers might have a better record at that point than the Dodgers.
Yeah.
So it's interesting.
But yeah, I don't see any. The other interesting part of this is I know that they have, at least for a while at least, given up on Gavin Lux, but I wonder if you move him over there and you just picked up Cavan Biggio. It'll be interesting to see how they navigate this.
All right, Randy. The Birmingham Stallions, a dynasty that none of us saw coming. A three-peat, a legit three-peat. The only other football three-peats that we've seen, the Arena League. Everybody remembers these. 2012 to 2014, the Arizona Rattlers. Back in 1988 to 1990, the Detroit Drive. And before that, you got to go all the way back to the 1960s Packers for the last true three-peat that we can remember. Take it or leave it, the Birmingham Stallions and the Kansas City Chiefs will have a three-peat within the same calendar year.
Oh, that's a great one, and I'm going to take it. Yeah, I'm going to get on board with your Kansas City Chiefs. They're doing everything aside from adhering to the law.
Yeah,
the Chiefs are doing everything well. I really like the move for Marquise Hollywood Brown. I know a lot of people aren't big fans of bringing Hardman back. I am. The offensive line is going to be intact. I think Spags does as good a job of anybody, especially as a former defensive backs coach, of getting DBs ready. And I know he expressed some concern, but by the second half of the season, that defense without Snead will be fine. I think they have a great chance to three-peat.
I think they're going to do it. Obviously, I'm a homer. That's my squad. So I would be ridiculous to not choose them to win the title this year. I just look at the AFC around them. I see a lot of teams that have invested in their quarterback and are having to pull back elsewhere right now. The Chiefs, the last 2 years, that was when you were supposed to get them if you're the AFC. The Bills, that was you're all in. Allen still has a lower cap hit than what he's going to have eventually, and you're able to build around him accordingly. And now the Bills are having to rein it in a little bit. You see with Cincinnati, this is probably their last run with this current crop of players. I think they're going to be able to get it done. I think the AFC is getting worse around them while the Chiefs are starting to get better again. I think this is the year that they get that three-peat.
All right. Matthew, what do we got on the text line?
Take it or leave it. With Betts out, Wynn could be an all-star.
I'll take that.
Yeah. I think he's the most deserving shortstop. I think he should start the All-Star game, not just make it, but start at shortstop right now. I don't think he will, though, because Ellie De La Cruz is somebody that just has too much fanfare.
OPS among shortstops. Somebody's got to represent Colorado, right? You mentioned Tovar. C.J. Abrams and Washington's the same way. They don't have obvious people. I think one of the things that will hurt a guy like Mason Wynn is a guy like Helsley is going to make the team. Yeah. You probably have a starting pitcher make the team. And there are teams out there where the shortstop is really the only viable representative for the franchise.
And Ellie just has the name recognition.
Yeah, so he should win the voting, shouldn't he?
I would think so.
Take it or leave it. Welcome your new Dodgers shortstop, Paul DeYoung.
I'm going to leave that.
I could actually see that. Paul DeYoung's quietly hit, I think, 11 home runs this season.
Yeah, 769 OPS.
Yeah, he's hitting like weekend. 205, so it's exclusively power, but he is hitting for some power. I could see them saying, hey, listen, we just need somebody that can go out there, catch the ball for us, and hit for a little bit of pop. I could see something like that.
Take it or leave it is ridiculous.
I'll take it.
Take it or leave it. Jack Flaherty is the number 2 starter Wayne was referring to.
Oh, take it, yeah.
No, leave it.
You immediately said I'm going to take it, and then you heard it.
Leave it. God, please, no.
His numbers are sensational. Now, I don't know if they would be sensational here, but he's had a really good year for the Tigers.
I think he leads Major League Baseball in strikeout percentage this year, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Take it or leave it. St. Louis should host their own eating competition, hold it under the arch, and the contestants eat toasted ravs.
I'll take it.
That'd be a tough eating competition food. Those things can be sharp. Mm-hmm. Those edges can have a little bit of edge to them.
Yeah, I was trying to think of something else.
Randy, in my household, we have become YouTube people. And I'm not talking about YouTube TV. I'm talking about YouTube. So we are watching all of these YouTubers,
oh my
right?
God, you and me both.
Oh, it's terrible.
It's the worst.
So we get sucked into the video about the guy that says, here are the #1 foods for every state in America. We watched that one yesterday, and I was legitimately angered.
Oh God!
By this list, and
it'll get you.
They had toasted ribs.
I've seen this video. It'll get you
as the nominee for Missouri, and I was like, dude. Ribs.
Yeah, it's better.
Ribs.
Yes.
For both sides of the state.
Yep.
It's ribs. How can you have toasted ribs as the answer to the food within the state of Missouri that they're most well known for? That's absurd. So the answer to the question should be leave it. It's ribs. Ribs are clearly the event that you'd want, and also that would be the most disgusting thing you've ever seen.
Oh, yeah. That's a hard one to win, though. How do you judge a ribs? Because you have to take a lot of meat off the bone, right?
Take it all the way down.
I wonder how you judge that.
Pre-weigh the rib, and then you take all the bones, and then you weigh the bones. The largest difference in pre-weight and post-weight is the winner.
That's a good way to do it.
Yeah, okay.
Rock's thought about this. He didn't just come up with that.
Don't ask me.
Rock has definitely thought about what this contest would look like.
You guys have tripped into my bailiwick on this one.
Check here. Let me just check and make sure that they're... So we've got the pork ribs record is held by Joey Chestnut. 13.76 pounds of pork rib meat in 12 minutes.
I gotta imagine that's what they did.
Oh, I'm gonna throw... Randy, I know you've put down some food in your day.
I have.
13 pounds in 12 minutes?
Almost 14.
Honestly, for me, the most disgusting food to be watching competitive eating. Have you ever watched them do competitive eating for ice cream?
Oh, no.
It's so hard. Like after the fourth full spoonful, you're like, that one makes me physically ill.
Because of the headache?
Just the amount of dairy. By the time they're getting through that third mini Ben and Jerry's thing, just in one scoop of the spoon. Oh.
Well, back in the day, I could do ice cream. By the way, pork ribs, the 5-minute record held by Matt Stoney. 71 ribs in 5 minutes for Matt Stoney.
I forgot about Matt Stoney.
Yeah, he's the only guy to break Joey Chestnut's string. And Patrick Bertoletti holds the baby back ribs record, 5.24 pounds at the Rib Fest in Chicago in 8 minutes. 5.24.
Are we still doing baby back ribs? I feel like they had a moment there for a little while.
It doesn't seem like they're really... No,
Chili's can change that with one move. One marketing move, Chili's can change that.
They're back.
Yeah. So
you like the McRib? Just wait until we bring these back.
One last one. Take it or leave it. After watching that back nine yesterday, Rory McIlroy's wife now files for divorce from him.
Oh, man.
He'll take it.
Take it. That's bad.
Oh, poor guy. Yeah,
well, hey, he's got love, though.
Yeah.
He's still got love, though,
From a lot of places.
They're not filing the divorce anymore. He's still got love. That's what matters.
Wonderful. That's great.
I think you'd rather have the U.S. Open.
Thank you, Matthew.
Thank you, Randy.
I don't know about that. Well, maybe you would. Maybe you would. Coming up, Pedro Pajes has been playing well. He earned more playing time behind the plate for the Cardinals. It seems like Ali Marmol believes that's the case. That's next on 101 ESPN.
on today's top stories. This is Fresh Take.
Presented by Lindenwood University. Real experience, real success.
Swing and a drive, hit high in the air toward left. Hep is back at the ivy, and it's gone. It's gone. Pages has hit a homer. It's 1-0 Cardinals. What a time for the first major league home run of the career of Pedro Pages. A high towering fly ball toward left, and going back up against the ivy. That's going to carry out. Pedro Pages with a wind-blown homer for the Cardinals. It's 2-0 St. Louis.
Chip and Brad, and Chip yesterday doing the Roku broadcast, all the other action from Valley Sports. And BK, let's start with this. The reason that Pedro Pages is getting playing time with the Cardinals is that Ivan Herrera just can't throw. And they had to do something defensively. And while Pages is, over the last couple of weeks, he's only hitting 200, but he does have a 792 OPS. And the Cardinals are looking more at the OPS than the batting average anyway. And they're giving him playing time, even though he's not getting a ton of hits. Hitting for power over the weekend really benefits him. And if it's between he and Herrera right now, it seems like a really easy choice. He does have the OPS. He's getting on base. He's hit the home runs. And he's delivering defense that, unfortunately, Ivan Herrera just did not.
I will give Ollie Marmol a lot of credit for this. And, Randy, I know you and Ollie at times do not exactly see eye to eye. However, one of the things that he said during the offseason was, we are going to prioritize defense. That is easy to say in the offseason. It is much harder to do during the regular season when you get into the games and you're watching the team and you're struggling to get hits. Well, from start to finish, he has prioritized defense so far in center field. He did that early on with Victor Scott. That situation didn't end up working out, and they immediately went to Michael Ciani. It's like, okay, we'll see how long they stick with this. Eventually, I wonder if they're going to stick like Lars Nootbaar in center field, Dylan Carlson in center field to get something more offensively. They haven't. They have stuck with Michael Ciani despite him being pretty terrible offensively so far this year. The same appears to be true at catcher now. They had Wilson Contreras, and you don't have to make any questions about that. He's so good offensively, and he had improved defensively. Well, then you go to Ivan Herrera. He sees the Rockies clearly seeing what a lot of other teams had seen. They run wild against Ivan Herrera. And since then, Pedro Pages has started 6 of the last 7 games. He's hitting fine, but not enough to be like, okay, that's the guy you got to go with. Ivan Herrera is a better hitter than Pedro Pages, but Pages is a much better defensive guy back there. He's good with pitch framing, and he's really solid at throwing runners out. Not great, but solid enough. And it makes me wonder, Randy, what does this look like moving forward? Because it's easy to do this over a 1-week stretch, but Wilson Contreras isn't far away. He's going on his rehab stint. I cannot believe that's the case, but starting this week. Yeah. I would bet in the next couple of weeks, Wilson Contreras will be back and starting on a regular basis for the St. Louis Cardinals again. Then what? What do you do with this catcher situation after that, Randy?
Well, the question that needs to be answered is Herrera ever going to be able to throw? There are people in the organization that don't think he ever will be a good thrower. He's worked very hard at it. I guess it's one of the negatives of not having a minor league catching instructor, too, is you don't, young catchers don't improve appreciably when you don't have a minor league catching instructor. But that's an aside. But I think that looking ahead, let's look at the immediate future. If you're going to have 2 catchers on the roster, Herrera's the one that's got to be the odd man out, doesn't he? He's got to be down at Memphis.
I would think so, because we've seen the pitchers clearly like throwing to Pedro Pages. They preferred throwing to him over Herrera. Now, that's not to say that Herrera's bad at the pregame preparation or anything like that. We haven't heard any of that this year. We did hear that at times in the past. So that's not necessarily the case, but Pages just seems to be a little better at that stuff. So he reminds me so much of all of the catchers that we saw behind Yadier Molina, where it's like, get a good glove. He's going to start once every 5 days, and he'll be out there occasionally, whatever. He'll be fine with it. Seems like a good guy. Guys in the clubhouse enjoy being around him. Perfect. Backup catcher for the Cardinals. I wonder if they'll keep 3. Because Ivan Herrera, they need a right-handed bench bat on this team. So what I would do when Contreras gets back is send down Fermin. because you can just have Ivan Herrera be in that Fermin role. It's not like Fermin's playing defensively for you right now very often anyways. And Donovan essentially serves as like 3 different players on the roster because he can play anywhere for you on any given day. If you get an extended absence in the infield, maybe you decide to call somebody back up. But for the foreseeable future, I think you're back to the 3-catcher thing. This becomes difficult whenever they need to call up an outfielder. Whenever either Edman or Walker or Nootbaar is ready to return, now you got to make a tough choice. But until then, I think they go with 3 catchers for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. I just don't see in the long term, and a lot has been made of, okay, you still fit Herrera's bat into the lineup. I don't think he's a good enough bat to be a DH, do you? I would
for
think,
this team,
yeah,
maybe good enough right now.
Well, at the moment. But if you're going to DH a catcher again, you put Pajes behind the plate and DH Contreras.
Sure.
Rather than if you have
got
3 on the
Contreras
roster.
at catcher and you're going up against a left-handed pitcher, who's the better option at DH for you on those days than Ivan Herrera? He becomes your best option there. You know, they right now are lacking that option as a designated hitter. It should be Walker. Walker should be like on those days in right fields, and you can go with somebody else at DH. But they don't have that option right now. So until Walker is ready to go, or until you get Tommy Edman back who can play in center field on those days, you probably do go Ivan Herrera at DH in those spots.
By the way, I find it somewhat disappointing that they signed Ivan Herrera in 2016. And when we were down, before the pandemic, when we were down in Florida, everybody in the organization acclaimed him as the heir to Yadier Molina. They said he's going to be fine defensively. In fact, they raved about his defense and said his bat needs to catch up. Nobody figured out that he can't throw? It's
kind of
surprising.
Weird. It is surprising. I do wonder. I think we're seeing, Randy, a lot of examples of this with the Cardinals and elsewhere. It's not just a Cardinals issue. This is a baseball issue. The gap between the minor leagues and the big leagues has never been wider.
Right.
And you're seeing that on the pitching side where guys will come up, again, not just for the Cardinals, but they'll come up elsewhere as well. It's like, oh, this guy is not ready for the kind of hitting that he's going to see in the big leagues. Or you see top prospects across the sport. Jackson Holliday was one of them. They get up to the big leagues and they're like, wait, that's a sweeper? Oh, that looks different than the stuff that I see down in the minors. Or they see these splitters, or they see Paul Skeens. It's like, dude, I was unprepared for this to be the kind of pitching. And you see all of the parade of relievers that are coming out throwing 95 plus, and every single one of them has a wipeout slider, and they just don't know how to adjust. And so for Herrera, I think the adjustment has been more of, oh, I didn't see this kind of speed on a consistent basis down in the minors with guys that can get a read off of my pitcher the way that they can up in the majors. So I think guys adjust differently, and it's taken him a long time, and I don't know that he's going to get there.
And maybe it would have been easier for the Cardinals to evaluate. When baseball goes from 6 minor league teams to 4, and you cut 50 players out, it used to be, from the standpoint that you're talking about, the hitters facing pitchers, you had that 28-year-old minor league veteran that had stuff, you know, he had a wrinkle to everything, and you had to learn how to hit against an experienced guy. There are no experienced guys in the minor leagues anymore. It's all young guys that have been drafted, and players age out of the minor leagues so much more quickly now that a guy who's on the edge of being at the major leagues but probably isn't going to be, maybe a 4A guy, is just not there anymore.
He's just out of the league.
Yeah.
Just out of the league entirely.
Baseball.
Like they don't have those players now in AAA because that is a developmental league now.
Right.
Now it is, okay, well, we've got Jordan Walker and Victor Scott, and there are some 4A guys, like the Cardinals have that Lucan Baker. And he's, 25, 26 years old right now, and that's like old, quote unquote, for AAA at this point. Or there's rehab guys that are going out on rehab assignments and they're down there. But otherwise, it's a lot of guys that are on the cusp of getting to the big league level. And now AAA is like, have a cup of coffee there, come up to the big league roster. There are a decent amount of guys that are just skipping it entirely.
Yeah.
They're just coming up to the big leagues at 22, 23 years old. So I don't think Ivan Herrera is going to get better with his throwing arm. And it does make me wonder, if you get to the deadline this year and there are teams that are calling and you're trying to find that number 2 starter that we're talking about, Randy, that they need going into the postseason, maybe Ivan Herrera becomes the guy that you can dangle in some of those trade negotiations, because there are very few catchers that hit like him across the big leagues, and teams will value that. Yes, Monty Grandal has had a, 10, 12-year major league career as a just pure hit first catcher. Teams will take him, and they'll see that he's so young and cheap and cost-controlled. Be like, that's a super valuable trade commodity, And the Cardinals have enough catchers in the system and already on the big league roster to make a move like that possible.
And half the teams in baseball are managed by former catchers who probably think, oh, I can fix that. But that's just the ego of good coaches, and there's nothing wrong with that. By the way, let me just give you an example. Kyle McClellan was a key part of the 2011 Cardinals. He spent 02, 03, 04, 05, 06, 07 in the minors. Finally makes the Cardinals at the age of 24 in 08. I don't think a guy like Kyle McClellan sticks around in the minors anymore because of the dearth of available spots for pitchers in the minors.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the Cardinals minor, especially in the Cardinal system, they are pushing these guys rapidly, man. I know a lot of people wanted to see Sam Robersa at the big league level. He's like 22 years old.
Right.
And we think of him as like, oh, he was on the cusp last year. He must be really, really close now. I don't know, man. A lot of these guys are taking until they're 23, 24, 25 years old to really become legitimate big leaguers. And the Cardinals pushed these guys to get to AAA as quickly as possible, and they've stalled a bit. They're also really young. I think they have the youngest rotation right now down in AAA. Mm-hmm. So for this team especially, you're seeing a lot of those guys get to the AAA level quicker than what they would have 5, 10, especially 15 years ago.
That's today's Fresh Take here on 101 ESPN. Coming up, the Blues made some big news last week. We haven't talked to Chris Kerber about it. We will next when he joins us, as he does every Monday, on the opening drive on 101 ESPN.
It's time for a DraftKings at Casino Queen Redbird report on 101 ESPN.
Cards take 2 of 3 in Windy City. Good morning. I'm Bradford Bruns with your Redbird reports. The Miles Michaelis renaissance continues as number 39 cruised through 6+ innings yesterday. St. Louis edges those Cubbies 2-1, improving to 35 and 35 overall. Michaelis once again dialing up the efficiency. 91 pitches, 64 strikes. He is 3-1 with a 2.76 ERA since May 12th. Catcher Pedro Pajes provided ample support, not only series finale-wise, but throughout the weekend. How about 2 homers, 3 ribbies across 10 plate appearances at Wrigley? Tonight, the Cardinals find themselves in Miami. Braxton Garrett fires first pitch shortly after 5:40. He's opposed by Sonny Gray.
The Redbird Report is presented by DraftKings at Casino Queen. Play, stay, dine at DraftKings at Casino Queen.
Well, we're in it now. You know that, right? The summer heat is here. Now, you've been listening to myself, Alex Ferrario, talking about Classic Air Care. Did you call them up? Did you get that air conditioning unit serviced up? If not, well, keep your fingers crossed. But, hey, look, there's still time. You can get that unit in your house serviced. You can make sure that it's every bit ready to go as the summer heat continues to climb. And you do it by calling the folks at Classic Air Care. A Google rating of 4.8 stars. That means that everybody is using Classic Air Care and liking the service that they're getting. It's convenient. It's quick. The pricing is great. And if there is an issue, they're going to fix it because they use absolute professionals that are trained to make sure the job is done and done properly. They're going to educate you on what is needed if something is needed, and they're going to make sure that you are satisfied as a customer. That's their number one goal, to make sure that you are satisfied as a customer and your home is comfortable to live in. It's Classic Air Care. Book an appointment online at classicaircare.com. Call them up. Get that unit serviced and ready for the summer. If a repair is needed, you can call them. You can rely on them to get over there quickly to get it fixed. Why? Well, they've been making people comfortable since 1926.
BK in for Brooke on this Monday morning, and as it is Monday morning, Chris Kerber joins us on the Celebrity Line on 101 ESPN. Curbs, good morning. How you doing?
Randy, I am awesome. Just about to drive home from Sioux Falls, South Dakota. The AFA 2010 Ruffians made the President's Cup tournament. Didn't advance beyond Sunday, but had, I think, a great tournament, a great season, a great run. And check this out. How about a couple of minor league hockey teams up here in South Dakota, in Rapid City, right near Mount Rushmore, and then in Sioux Falls. And there's the minor league hockey team here in Sioux Falls has a great promotion where every year they do wiener dog races.
Oh, nice!
But they sell a ton of these Sioux Falls wiener dog jerseys, which are just fantastic looking. They get pre-orders from it's one of my favorite things, and I know you and I have talked a lot about, but the promotions that go into minor league sports to get people excited, to get people in, I still think it's awesome. So it's cool to kind of learn some of that stuff while we're up here.
And in the Dakotas, man, hockey is a big deal.
You know what? So there's a park here called Sioux Falls Park, and that's where kind of the waterfalls go right through downtown. And I don't know, maybe you guys know this. Do you guys know why, why on certain gates and stuff people put padlocks? You know, you've ridden your bike a lot, right?
Mm-hmm,
so you've seen like a gate where all of a sudden like people just put a whole bunch of different locks on a gate.
Yeah, okay, yeah, I've seen that.
So I don't know why that is, but I'll send you this picture. There was this gate on this old mill right near the falls, and a bunch of people put locks, and somebody hung like an old pair of hockey skates. And I'm talking an old pair. I'm like the kind that Phil Roberto used to wear. And so sitting on this gate is this old hung pair of hockey sticks with a bunch of locks or hockey skates, and I have no idea what in the heck happened.
It's a symbol of love. See, people put the lock on the fence as a symbol of love, and obviously the hockey skates were a symbol of love.
Okay, that I had no understanding of the reasoning for that, but now that makes a little bit of sense.
All right,
somebody clearly was not going to wear those hockey skates in a beer league skate these days. These things are old.
All right, Curb. So Stanley Cup final, we have an 8-1 victory in favor of the Edmonton Oilers. And if this was soccer, we'd do the aggregate scoring system thing. And now the Oilers are essentially ahead of the series, right? That's how this works.
Yeah, you know what? We were talking about that game as it was going on, and it is so hard. Like, I'm not at all surprised that Edmonton won that game. The amount of distractions that Florida was probably dealing with going into that game. So if you imagine going up there, you fly up to Edmonton, you've got all the travel, the long travel. You get up there, and it's just a 2-0 series. Well, you win game 3 to make it 3-0. Now you're like, okay, well, who's coming into town for a potential Stanley Cup clincher? Or all of a sudden are people trying to get in? Does the team fly family in? And we lived through this in 2019, and some of those distractions are real. What you go through potentially in a clinching game can be such a distraction that it might take you a game to realize, okay, that was a distraction, and so I'm not at all surprised by the win, but and then I got to think, Bobrovsky was distracted in the process as well, too. So I'm not thinking that trend is going to continue, to be honest with you.
Kerbs, did you have something else? BK?
I just wanted to ask a follow-up on Connor McDavid in that game. He now has broken the record, Kerbs, for the most assists in a single postseason. It was an old Wayne Gretzky record that I didn't know was going to go down. I didn't think that anybody could replicate what he did. What are we witnessing right now? You're good with this stuff in terms of putting it in historical context. What are we watching right now with Connor McDavid and what he's done this postseason?
Well, it's one of the great things about having Connor McDavid and the Edmonton Oilers go to the final. One, get a Canadian team back in the final, I think, is a positive. But listen, he's been playing north of the border now. When you're talking about a guy that's had 7 straight 100-point seasons, and I like to put it into perspective for Blues fans. When you realize that Robert Thomas had over 82 points this year, and that's the first time since Pavel Demitra in 2003, right? Well, the Edmonton Oilers have watched a player hit over 100 points 7 consecutive years. Now, to put, but this is fascinating. To put this into perspective, so you are truly looking at greatness. I mean, look, we've seen greatness in recent years in Crosby, in Ovechkin, in Stamkos, what Nikita Kucherov is doing. I don't think you've got to put Kucherov in this mix, when you're talking about just the most electrifying players right now. But Connor McDavid is at an all-world level. Guys, he'd have to play like another 13 seasons, averaging something like 120 points to even start to come close to Wayne Gretzky. Huh. Like the kind of numbers that Wayne put up is so crazy and so sick that it doesn't take away from what Connor McDavid is doing. It just reemphasizes how great the great one was. But to see a record like that fall, to see them go deep, you just continue. The more people get to watch this guy play, because this is truly, this is another Babe Ruth of your sport with the kind of numbers he's putting up.
Kerbs, you and I heard Ken Hitchcock say many times that Alexander Steen was the conscience of the Blues on the ice, at both ends of the ice, and with the way he played. And so with the way that the Blues, the esteem with which both Hitch and Doug Armstrong for years have held Alexander Steen, no surprise in my mind that he was named the next general manager of the Blues. What do you think he brings to the table, though? You know Steener very well, and I just think of a guy who, from a player's standpoint, was really good at evaluating not just the physical attributes of a player, but the way that a player plays the game.
Yeah, and you know what? And he had such, obviously living at the rink, growing up at the rink with his dad being a player. But when he first turned pro, and you listen to Alexander talk about Matt Sundin and some of the other Toronto Maple Leafs, this is, I believe, is the coach when the Blues made the trade was Ron Wilson in Toronto, and Alexander Steen was a first-round pick, and Ron Wilson was pretty much playing him in a fourth-line role and didn't think he was much of a player. And then the Blues made the trade with Lee Stempniak for him and Carly Koliakovo. And I was wondering, no more impactful trade in the history of the Blues franchise than Brett Hull, right? But now when you look at the impactfulness of that Alexander Steen trade, I wonder where fans might rank that trade in Blues lore and Blues history. He's extremely smart. He's so flat-lined and level-headed that he's got an idea of what it takes to win. For him, it's about character. But listen, here's the thing about Alexander Steen that goes beyond the game. He made St. Louis his home. He understood the community. He understood things like the role that certain businesses played in the franchise and in helping the players and things like that. And he had such great respect for all of it that you put this whole package together. And he's been working in hockey ops over in Sweden for a little bit. Now he's been helping Doug and this group out, and there's a training process. And, who knows how this is all going to work out. You hope that it works out terrifically, but there's no doubt that he's got the mind and the analytic approach to the game of hockey to understand what it takes to build. And now he's going to learn from one of the best general managers in the history of the game. And so if there's anything you're really excited about, one, it's having him back in town and having him part of this organization. It's a tremendous asset. But the other thing that you're really excited about is, the Blues clearly have a plan. And what Tom Stillman said, I thought was great. He said, in every other form of business, there's typically a succession plan that's put into place as the business moves on, as the business grows. He says, but in sports, we just seem to take some of these top leadership positions and just make changes on a whim. And That's just not how Tom wants to operate. So I think you've got to – who knows if plans work out or not, but you got to like the fact that they communicate it and they have it and they're going to stick to it.
Carlo Koliakovo, by the way, part of that trade will be on with the guys on BK and Ferrario today at 1 o'clock. So Carlo coming up at 1. Did want to ask one follow-up on that. The Alex Steen news coming from last week. One of the things that I've been thinking about since then is, does this make it more or less likely that Pavel Buchnevich is signed long-term? I don't know how much influence Army's going to have in decision, or excuse me, that Steen is going to have this offseason. But I would imagine that Army's at least discussing some of these things with him, especially a long-term deal that will affect the early part of Alex Steen's tenure as GM. More likely, I feel like stylistically, Buch would be a player that would appeal to Alex Steen. But he'll be 31 years old the first year that Alex Steen takes over, and he has to deal with the back end of that contract. So where do you fall on that, Curbs? Do you think that it would make it more or less likely that Buch is here long term?
I don't think that this decision and this the naming of Alexander Steen as the GM in waiting impacts that decision at all. Because a couple things. Well, first off, quickly back to Carlo Koliakovo. When you get him on, you got to ask him what it's like to always be part of one of the greatest hockey memes ever. Okay, if you've ever seen that one where he crashes into the glass, look it up and then ask him about it. It's fantastic. All right? Okay, so but back to the Buchnevich question. The reason I say that, BK, is this is still Doug Armstrong's ship. Doug Armstrong made it clear he's still got a couple of years of serious work to do to get this team to where he wants to leave it. I believe that Alexander Steen, and this has already been obvious with a couple of signings of these young Swede players, some of the draftings and things like that, Alex has already had a pretty good influence with Doug Armstrong in terms of his opinion. You heard Drew Bannister talk about when he was going through the re-interview process to have the interim tag removed. One of the people he spent time with and talked to was Alexander Steen. So I believe that Alexander's input is already part of the process. So to me, the process is still going to come down to, one, I did talk to Buchnevich. I know he would like to stay. I know he'd like to be here, but he also knows that he's in his prime. He wants to win. He likes it here. And it's just a matter of, can they get the term right? Guys, you just don't turn around and go find Pavel Buchnevich's, around every corner. They're not easy to get. The Blues were able to get him because the Rangers found themselves in a cap situation, and they weren't sure they wanted to re-sign him. And I would think that the Rangers take that deal back any day of the week at this point in time, if they could have. So, to me, my feelings on this, BK, haven't changed. I still think Pavel is an important part of this group moving forward. I think you need those veteran presences, and if you're going to bring young guys along, don't forget, when you won the Stanley Cup, you had Alexander Steen in his 30s. You had Bozak in his 30s, right? You had guys that were of age that were older, but with the fitness, with the expectations, with the nutrition, players are playing better later in their career, and sometimes you got to play in a sandbox, and I hope that he stays a part of this because he is still, I think, a critical piece to this hockey team. So I don't know that this decision really changes that process because you are talking a few years out, and that contract's still going to have to come down to term and amount that they're able to figure out.
Curbs, safe travels. Thanks for the time this morning. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, guys. Have an awesome week. Cheers.
Thank you. See you later. That is Chris Kerber, the voice of the Blues, here on 101 ESPN. Coming up, we've got the fight, and that means we need a fighter. Text in 314-399-9646, 314-399-YO-HO with your name and the word fight, and maybe Matthew will pick you to fight me next on 101 ESPN. If you are a business owner or CEO or a CFO, you need to hear this. NetSuite by Oracle is hosting a day-long event on Thursday, June 27th at the Union Station Hotel downtown. They're calling it Business Grows Here, and it's set up to help you grow your business. Spend the day learning from more than a half dozen speakers on stage, sharing their wisdom and insights, including Jamie Simonov, the founder of Ring Video Doorbell, whose new company is going to be based right here in St. Louis. Every speaker you'll hear will leave you with actionable strategies and tips that you can immediately apply to your business. Take all the notes you want and meet people that can change the way you look at growing your business today. Apply to attend the business event of the year. NetSuite's Business Grows Here happens Thursday, June 27th, downtown at Union Station, and it'll be a day well spent. It's free to attend if you qualify. You can apply today to find out if you do. While seats are still available, go online to netsuite.com/Missouri. That's NETSUITE, netsuite.com/Missouri.
This is Rocky with your Sports Center update, brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling. The Cardinals take 2 of 3 in Chicago with a win yesterday over the Cubs, 2-1. Pedro Pages with his second home run of the series. That's the entire Cardinals line for the game. And then Miles Michaelis takes him home with 6 1/3, 4 hits and 1 run allowed, 5 strikeouts in that game for Michaelis. Also over the weekend, not so much success for St. Louis City SC as they fall to Dallas FC 2-0. They have dropped to 3-9-5 on the season with 18 points through their first 17 games. That is your Sports Center update, brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling, an independent American Standard heating and air conditioning dealer.
Welcome to the fight. In the red corner, Average Joe Listener. And in the blue corner, the undisputed king of morning drive. Please welcome Randy Carricker.
Welcome back to the opening drive. I'm Brandon Kiley. Matt Rocchio in studio with me. Randy Carricker out of the studio. We kicked him out because he can't be in here during the fight. We've got Kevin on the line. He's going to be fighting up against Randy on this beautiful Monday morning in St. Louis. Kevin, how you doing today?
Doing well, BK. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Are you feeling confident coming off of a Father's Day weekend?
Against Randy, not really, but I'll give it my best shot.
That feels right. That's pretty much how I would feel as well. All right, Kevin, let's get right into this thing. On this day, 30 years ago, the late O.J. Simpson led a police chase on national television. It was low speed in nature. That happened in part during Game 5 of which NBA Finals matchup? Oh, A, the Bulls versus the Supersonics. I thought you were going Randy style here. B, the Bulls versus the Suns. Or C, the Rockets versus the Knicks.
I think that was the Bull Sonics one? We'll go with the Bull Sonics.
All right, number 2, owner of one of the greatest touchdown dances and nicknames in NFL history, with which team did Billy White Shoes Johnson start his NFL career? Was it the Houston Oilers, the Dallas Cowboys, or the Atlanta Falcons?
White Shoes, I just had to go with the Cowboys on that one.
All right. And question number 3, which Cardinals catcher owns the franchise single season mark for home runs from that position? He had 26 in that season. Is it Joe Torre, Ted Simmons, or Yadier Molina?
Let's go with Ted Simmons.
All right, and question number 4. Which PGA golfer holds the record for the most consecutive tournaments won with 11 straight? Is that Ben Hogan, Tiger Woods, or Byron Nelson?
Can't really bet against Tiger, so let's go with Tiger Woods.
All right, we'll double-check the score, and we will bring in Randy Carricker.
Kevin, how you feeling?
Not so well, BK, but it's a Monday, beautiful day in St. Louis, so I got that going for me.
That's right. It's going to be like 120 degrees outside.
Yeah.
You just can't beat it. There's nothing better than the sweet, sweet smell of asphalt that's burning off of the ground. You can't beat it.
I'm glad you said fault.
Yeah. You know what I was going with there. Randy back in studio. Randy, we've got Kevin on the line for the fight today.
Kevin, good morning. How you doing?
Hey, Randy, good morning. Hey, hope you guys had a good Father's Day.
Did have a great Father's Day. How about you?
I did well. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you very much for listening. Thanks for playing. We appreciate it.
All right, Randy, let's get into this.
All right.
Question number 1. On this day 30 years ago, one of your favorite days, the late O.J. Simpson led police on a nationally televised low-speed chase. That happened in part during Game 5 of which NBA Finals matchup?
The matchup was the Knicks and the Rockets at Madison Square Garden. O.J. Simpson thought that Bob Costas was in studio in New York and called the studio because they worked together for the NFL. And an engineer picks up the phone and says, just says hello. And he says, and O.J. says, need to talk to Bob. And the engineer says, Bob who? And he's Bob Costas. He says, you know who this is? I said, no, I don't know who this is. It's O.J. The engineer hangs up on him. And then, as it turns out, Costi comes home. He was still at his home here, and OJ had left a message, I think, on his home phone during the chase. So it was Patrick Ewing against Hakeem Olajuwon.
Randy, number 2 today. Owner of one of the greatest touchdown dances and nicknames in NFL history, with which team did Billy White Shoes Johnson start his career?
I believe he started with Houston and then went to Atlanta. I think that was the way. Maybe it was Atlanta, then Houston. I'm going to go with an Oiler and then Falcon.
All right, question number 3. Which Cardinals catcher owns the franchise single-season mark for the most home runs from that position? He had 26 in a season.
26 home runs for a Cardinal catcher. I don't think Simmons ever did 26, and it certainly hasn't been since. Yachty never did it. So, BK, I'm going to do the lifeline here.
All right, we go the options here?
Yeah. Yep.
Is it Joe Torre? Is it Ted Simmons? Or is it Yadier Molina?
Well, that narrows it down because Torre was not a catcher here. He was a third baseman primarily. He did hit 37 home runs, I think, when he had the MVP playing third base. I will have to go with Ted Simmons then because Yachty never hit 26. We know that for sure.
All right, Randy, and the last question. Which PGA golfer holds the record for the most consecutive tournaments won with 11 straight?
11 consecutive tournaments won. I will go with... I'm going old-timey on you here. I'm either going to go with... you know what? I'll go Bobby Jones. This is a good name. Former Padres and Mets pitcher, too.
Wow, he was an athlete. Tell you what.
Yeah.
All right, we have a winner in today's fight. Does Kevin take down Megamind on a Monday? Or is Randy still locked in from the weekend? Ring that bell.
The winner and still champion of the fight, Randy Carricker.
The fight is presented by Golf Discount of St. Louis. With the most experienced club fitters in town. Why shop anywhere else?
Just win, baby. I'm sorry, Kevin. Randy Carricker took you down by a score of 3-1 in today's edition of the fight.
I appreciate it, guys. I want to get Randy tested for steroids at some point.
Some kind of important performance enhancer, it's got to be there.
As long as it's not random, as long as I know ahead of time.
It's legal. It's legal now.
There you go. On this day,
no rules against it.
This day 30 years ago, it was June 17th, 1994, the O.J. Simpson police chase. He tried to call Bob Costas while he was broadcasting Rockets-Knicks Game 5, a pretty good series. Owner of one of the greatest touchdown dances. He did the chicken dance, by the way. And then, of course, his nickname, Billy White Shoes Johnson. He did start his career with the Houston Oilers. Then he went to the Falcons. And then the Redskins he finished his career off with. And there was a season in there when he went to the CFL and played for the Montreal Alouettes.
I remember that.
Which Cardinals catcher owns the franchise's single-season mark for home runs with 26 in a season? 1979, Ted Simmons did, in fact, hit 26 for the St. Louis Cardinals. Yadier Molina capped out at 22 or 23 is one of his highest. I'm blanking on it right now. And which PGA golfer holds the record for the most consecutive tournaments with 11 straight? It is actually the 1945 season by Byron Nelson.
Oh, that's old-timey.
He won.
Classic.
He actually won 7 of them in back-to-back weeks. And then he had to take a break for a couple of those other wins. By the way, for the most consecutive wins in PGA history, Tiger Woods is number 2 with 7 straight wins. He's tied with Ben Hogan also with 6 straight wins. He's the only player to ever have a 5-win stretch, and he's one of 9 players to also have a 3-win stretch in a row. So yeah, Tiger's all over it, but at the very top is the man, Byron Nelson. A 3-1 win for Randy Carricker in the fight today. Thank you, Kevin, for joining the fight and joining the show.
Thanks, guys. Try to stay cool today.
Thanks, Kevin. You too. Take care. Kevin with us on 101 ESPN. Coming up on Friday before Game 4 of the NBA Finals, Jason Kidd, the Mavericks coach, talked about how his 25-year-old superstar Luka Doncic was suffering from barbecue hot blasting from the media. And obviously, Luka responded. Do we have a tendency to judge athletes on too small of a sample size and too quickly? That's next on 101 ESPN. I've got exciting news from Schnucks. You know, I'm always talking about how great the Schnucks Rewards program is because it is great. And now it's even better because they just released new perks to make it even more personalized for you. They have personal double points days, and that makes earning rewards easier and faster. Here's how it works. Keep an eye on the Rewards app for your personal double points day coupon. And once you clip it, you can use it to get double the points on your entire purchase. So instead of your usual 2% back, you're getting 4% back in Schnucks Rewards points to use on a future purchase. You get to choose when to use the coupon. You could apply it the next time you do a stock up shop, or you could just use it the time you come in today. It's an in-app coupon, so be sure to download the Schnucks Rewards app and check your digital coupons, and that's where you'll find this coupon where it periodically pops up. Download the Schnucks Rewards app and look out for those personal double points days. And don't forget, if you have the Schnucks Rewards app, you've got dingers for donuts. Whenever the Cardinals hit a home run, you get a free donut at Schnucks the next day with the Schnucks Rewards app.
Well, if he doesn't learn to play defense better, then the Dallas Mavs are going to continue to fall short. That's what it's going to be. Like they're going to continue to fall short. In an increasingly competitive Western Conference, when you got teams like Oklahoma City and Minnesota on the come, the Denver Nuggets ain't going nowhere with Jokic and Murray. I don't know that the Dallas Mavs are ever going to be able to have it better than they had it this postseason. Again, when you look back on the road that brought them, you got the Clippers without Kawhi Leonard, you got a young OKC team, and you got a young Minnesota Timberwolves team coming off of a grueling 7-game series against the Denver Nuggets. I don't know that it's ever going to break any better for Luka and the Mavs. Mm-hmm. And so you have to take advantage of those opportunities. You have to have the requisite maturity in order to do so. And their star player, the guy that this is all built around, doesn't have it.
That is Chris Canty on Unsportsmanlike last Thursday after Luka fouled out of a finals game and did not have a great game. Certainly had a bad moment. But to suggest that a team can't build a championship-type roster around a player because of one game or one series, to me is, BK, a little bit disingenuous. I think we are, and this is what they do at the mothership, right? But they're way too quick, I think, to judge a player. Luka Doncic, with all due respect to those other teams, aside from Jokic, he's the best player on any of those teams. And if he plays his game like he did on Friday night, then Dallas certainly. You're saying this about a guy who at the time was 4 wins away from a world championship. To say he's never going to win a championship is pretty disingenuous to me.
I think so as well. And this is what we do. This is what we do in sports. And I think we have lost the ability, Randy, and I think this is on a local level as well. Forget the national sports talk, hot takey guys, but on a local level, we've lost the ability to enjoy the ride. Like, I think last year for Mizzou, right, that Mizzou football season, one of the most enjoyable rides I've been on as a fan. And I hope a lot of fans took the moment to just appreciate it for what it was. No, they were never going to be playing for the national championship. But it was fun as hell. I liked the guys on the team. There were a bunch of games where you get to the final moments. You're like, oh, my God, are they going to win or lose this? It comes down to the final play, right? And that's fun. As a fan, it's really enjoyable to be on a ride like that. But for many fans, they've lost the ability to enjoy that because now it becomes this ring culture where it is, if you don't win the ring, nothing else about it mattered.
Right.
The season was a failure. It was a colossal failure, like the Knicks season this year. Dude, what an awesome ride for Knicks fans. No, it didn't end in a ring. They didn't get to the NBA Finals, but it was a success. And so I think when you look at with Luka, I think what he said there is true. If he doesn't improve his defense, it's going to be really hard for this version of the Mavericks to win the NBA Finals. It is. Because it's hard to cover that up. In the current modern game, they are always looking for switches. And they're going to get you on the matchup that you don't want to be in, and they're going to exploit it time and time and time again. And that's hard to be able to overcome as a team. That being said, okay, then what? Like, are the Mavericks supposed to trade him? Are we supposed to move on? Are Mavs fans not supposed to enjoy having Luka Doncic to root for every single night? No, of course not. And this is where it loses me is Luka Doncic is one of the 2 best players in the league. If you could start a team today and you're saying, who would you like to build around? Well, I'll go Jokic number 1. You'd be my first choice. Luka might be the number 2 choice.
Agreed.
And, like, now I'm supposed to believe that you can't win with him? Of course not. Of course not.
And this has happened before. It happened with Peyton Manning, first pick in the draft, and has the monster second year, and they go 13-3. And he doesn't win a Super Bowl until 2006. But prior to 2006, between 1999 and 06, people were saying Peyton Manning could never win a Super Bowl, even though he was putting up these monstrous numbers, and even though he was within 4 quarters of getting to a Super Bowl. And the same thing happened with LeBron James. It's happening with McDavid and Draisaitl now. People are questioning whether or not McDavid can win Connor McDavid is 3 wins away from winning a Stanley Cup. Of course he's capable of being on a Stanley Cup championship team.
I think it's happening right now with Josh Allen in the NFL.
Yep, good call.
I think you're seeing this with Dak Prescott. Like, if you are not Patrick Mahomes, well, then you're a failure. Because how are you not getting any of these rings? I will be curious to see what happens with Joe Burrow. Because he's gotten hurt a couple of times now. We've seen season-ending injuries for him. We saw his team get to the Super Bowl, but did not win the Super Bowl, and that takes off a little bit of the heat. He was the rare guy that beat Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs, not named Tom Brady, the only one to do that. Well, what if this for the next couple of seasons kind of looks like it has the last couple of seasons? And that will be the next guy probably that this is coming for. It's happened to Lamar Jackson where it's like, oh, cool, you've got the MVPs, but can you do it in the postseason? He is really the modern day Peyton in that regard as well.
Okay, so I've got a guy that I defended for a long time, and it's almost impossible now, who I do think making a judgment like this is not unfair.
Okay.
Clayton Kershaw.
Man, see, I have a tough time with that one because, like, you look back at 2020 and he's doing it. I think Clayton Kershaw has some of the worst luck of any starter of this generation.
And he may have been cheated against by Houston in 2017.
It turns out that was an important one. I can't do it with Kershaw because he's one of the best pitchers. There's the book that recently came out from Andy McCullough, The Last of His Kind is what it's called. And he's probably the last of that era of pitcher that's going deep into games, is a true ace in every sense of the word. And so I
can make an argument
I'm
that
not
he's
there.
one of the top 5 starters of all time. But man, the postseason record is just...
It's fair. It's a fair critique. I do think, though, if he's a part of your rotation in the postseason, obviously not anymore, but I feel pretty good about that. Like, if you told me, hey, prime Clayton Kershaw is going to be a part of the Cardinals rotation, that's who they're trading for at this year's trade deadline, am I going to look at his postseason record and be like,
no,
well, you can't win with that? No, I'm going to be like, God damn, I think the Cardinals are going to potentially have some real chances to go deep into the playoffs this year. So I think we overstate a lot of what happens for individual players in single games in the postseason. I think that happened to a degree with Goldie and Arenado here. Goldie and Arenado have very small sample sizes of playoff successes or failures. And when you have 5, 6, 7 games as your entire resume, it's hard for me to go off of that. I'll go off of the bigger sample size for both of them.
So it'll be interesting to hear what the reaction is. And by the way, I never heard about the bad defense and immaturity after the 3 series wins that Dallas had. I never heard, they're pretty good, but they got to be careful because Luka, his defense is terrible and his maturity is terrible. We're never hearing that after the series wins.
Also, it's wild. It's wild to try to take away credit for beating the Thunder and then beating the Timberwolves team that beat the Nuggets. To say, like, well, this is a pretty easy run.
The Celtics were the team that had the easy run.
100% easier run for the Celtics than what the Mavericks have gone through. It was an insane take. And then just what happened in Game 4? Luka went absolutely atomic.
But that happens to guys.
Exactly.
It does.
I think in general, I've grown frustrated, Randy, with the way that we cover these kinds of things. Because everything is, well, what about the legacy? What about the legacy?
Yeah.
What about it's like, I get it. And I do it as well. Like for Mahomes, for example, right? There's only one guy you can compare him to at this point. He's chasing ghosts.
Right. His legacy is cemented. He's an all-time awesome.
He's in the LeBron spot, where LeBron, after his Miami Heat years, essentially, so like with a decade left to play, well, is LeBron going to be Michael? That's it, because there's nothing else to chase.
Exactly.
It's just, can you be the best, or are you just going to be the second best ever? And that's where Mahomes already is well, he's probably going to go down as the second best quarterback in the history of the league. Can he ever beat Brady, though? And the answer is probably no. Like, Brady had 20 years of unparalleled success in this league. Is Mahomes going to do that? I mean, I would bet against it. Maybe he can, but that becomes the conversation. So every time we see Mahomes, whenever it happens again, lose in the playoffs, he can't. He's never going to be able to reach Brady.
And that's the fact that he's in the playoffs is what we should be talking about. That he's in the playoffs again, and that's what you're talking about in terms of enjoying the journey.
Yeah,
right?
Like, do you think Bills fans don't enjoy having Josh Allen as their quarterback? Of course they do.
Also, on the flip side, I think there's been a lot of guys in history that we haven't given enough, we haven't come after them enough for late career mistakes in the playoffs because they won one early. The best example being Brett Favre in the playoffs after he wins one early in his career. After he wins one early, everything he does after that in the playoff mistakes, no one really even would focus on them that much. It was just like, well, he already has the one, and so you just kind of would glaze over them. Giannis is another great example.
What we're seeing right now, like Giannis seemingly gets hurt in the playoffs now every year, but he got it.
Kawhi too.
He got it out of the way, and so now everything is golden. It's, hey, he got his.
Here's the thing.
He's a winner.
If Kobe is just like an all-time scorer and an MVP, when the summer he starts demanding a trade from the Lakers instead of a 3-time champion and already a Laker great, the amount of reaction, if he was just an all-time scorer, like imagine if Russell Westbrook would have had a saga like Kobe had. Well, people would have hated him for that. And the entire talk would have been like, why couldn't you win the championship then with this team? Come on, step up.
Imagine if KD and Westbrook and Harden had won the title when they were in OKC, when they got there early in their careers. Right. So much about all of them. The way that we talk about them is like,
that's a great point.
But you remember what they did when they were together? It changes everything.
Yep. BK, Matthew, Randy, coming up the Rush Hour Reset on 101 ESPN. Hey, I want you to know about my friends at Chesterfield Fence and Deck. If you have a new puppy in the house, perhaps, and you want to keep that puppy within the perimeter of your yard, call Chesterfield Fence and Deck at 800-300-4054 or find them on the web at chesterfieldfence.com. Chesterfield Fence and Deck has been around for 56 years. I got my fence from them, and you will love the work they do for you because they provide long-lasting outdoor products, and they have a mission that they want to provide you the ability to have a great product in your home. They have great, knowledgeable project consultants, and they're going to come out, take the measurements of your yard and your house and find out what exactly you need. And then they'll provide a free, no-obligation project design that's really incredible. And then they'll show you pictures of things that they've done in the past so that you might get some ideas that you hadn't had in the past from Chesterfield Fence and Deck. They're A-plus rated by the Better Business Bureau. Everything has a 5-year labor warranty, and comprehensive material warranties are also provided. And when you mention this show, get 20% off your next installed outdoor project with Chesterfield Fence and Deck at chesterfieldfence.com. Call 800-300-4054. Chesterfield Fence and Deck, the sign you have the very best.
The opening drive with a rush hour reset.
It's 9:07 in St. Louis. Your time check brought to you by Clarkson Jewelers, an officially licensed Rolex jeweler. Time for our rush hour reset. Cards over the Cubs yesterday in Chicago, 2-1. Great work by Miles Michaelis. Cardinals will be in Miami tonight, and we're going to talk to our friend Chip Caray from Miami later. Sonny Gray goes for the Cardinals, and Braxton Garrett, who's been injured for Miami, will go for them. They've all had a rough go. He's 2-2 with a 6.10. He'll be making only his 7th start of the year.
This is one of those series, Randy, and you got to sweep.
Yep.
You got to sweep. Now, if you win 2 out of 3, is it a failure? No. We just talked about it in the last segment. Like, we make too much of these playoff runs and the end-all, be-all, legacy talk, all that. Like, you could still find a way to make it up if you don't end up sweeping this series. But this has sweep written all over it. You're going up against a terrible, terrible baseball team. They've got a starter on the mound tonight that has a 6 ERA. They have the lowest slugging percentage in Major League Baseball. And you've got Sonny Gray on the mound. Mm-hmm. You got to win this one. They don't even have a third starter announced for the Wednesday game just yet. You got Lance Lynn on the mound tomorrow, and you're going against some Munoz guy. This is the series. Yeah. You got to win all 3 of these.
And Skip Schumacher, he knows he's not going to be back next year. They've already pretty much determined to that. So they're kind of a lame duck. The whole team is kind of a lame duck situation.
Yeah, there was a piece earlier today over on The Athletic about what the trade deadline is starting to look like. You know, we're about 6 weeks away at this point from the deadline. And the article headline was, Marlins ready to deal. They're ready to trade right now. They've got assets, especially when it comes to starting pitching with Jesus Luzardo. As of right now, the Cardinals are not scheduled to meet him in this series. and they're ready to start dealing. So that tells you where they're at.
The Boston Celtics can wrap up the NBA championship tonight. It will be their 18th. They host Dallas in Game 5 of the NBA Finals. Celtics lead the series 3-1, and Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown have a chance. We talked about legacy. They have a chance to change their legacy. I don't know why Jason Tatum is thought of as a polarizing NBA player. He's a first-team NBA guy. Maybe it's because he hasn't won a championship yet, but he can go a long way towards cementing his quote-unquote legacy with a Celtics victory tonight.
I think I've got an answer on that, and I'm curious what you guys think about it. I think it's because he's never going to be in the discussion for the best player in the league. Like, there will never be a point in time, most likely, where we say Jason Tatum's the best player in the NBA.
Fair.
That is the case, though, for Joel Embiid. That is the case for Giannis, for Luka, for Jokic. Like, all of these other guys that are in the conversation in terms of where they stand in the league right now, best players in the league, they've all had a moment in time where you wondered, is that guy the best player in the league? And Tatum has never had that moment and probably never will have that moment. But he might be the best player on what is the best team in the league, and ultimately that's what matters. So this would be a huge moment for him, obviously. He's shooting 37% from the field so far in the NBA Finals. He's been a better creator than what I would have otherwise expected from him. So it's not like he's been a bad player overall, but I think this has been the Jaylen Brown series.
It has.
Jaylen Brown and Drew Holiday, I think, have been the two best players so far for the Celtics.
Yeah, and the one great thing about the Celtics is those three, particularly, they play great defense.
Oh, yeah.
And they have the ability not to shut down, but to frustrate the opposition. By the way, one of the reasons, I guess, that you mentioned who he's going up against to try to be the best player in the NBA. I guess you can't be the best player in the NBA if you were born in the United States of America.
Yeah. Giannis, Jokic,
Embiid, Luka.
Yeah. It's a lot of foreign-born players right now that are dominating the league and have really for the last 5 years or so.
Matthew, who's the best American-born player? Is it Brown?
It's probably Tatum.
I would still say it's Jason Tatum.
LeBron?
Well,
at this point, Tatum, and I say this is a LeBron honk. At this point, Tatum is the better
Curry,
player.
Durant. I think they've all kind of taken a step back. I think you can say Tatum probably the best. I'm forgetting somebody.
It's not Booker.
I think it's Tatum.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anthony Edwards.
Yeah.
Like maybe a year from now, I think might take over Tatum a little bit. But yeah, it's
Jalen
those
Brunson
guys.
is in the conversation right behind them. Shea Gilgeous-Alexander.
That's a good point. Shea, he's Canadian, isn't he?
Sounds like
I said it without thinking about it, and I feel like he probably is.
At the UFL Championship at the Dome yesterday, before apparently less than 27,000, Birmingham over San Antonio, 25-0. Congratulations to the Birmingham Stallions. Apparently the league will be back next year because they told us they're going to have Friday night games.
Yeah. I don't love this. I don't love this at all. I hope that they do the right thing and they continue to have Battlehawks games on Saturday afternoons or Sunday afternoons. My fear is they're going to get 5 home games over the course of the season. If they have 2 or 3 of those that are on Friday nights, I think that could severely decrease attendance.
And this is a product of Fox getting the IndyCar package. And it used to be that wrestling was on Fox on Friday nights. Well, that's going to TNT. And so we're going to have UFL games next fall or next winter and spring on Fox. And by the way, they're also talking about starting the season closer to the end of the Super Bowl so that it won't be as late this year. So we'll see if that happens. That's today's Rush Hour Reset. That's what it's called here on 101 ESPN. Coming up, we're going to talk to the Cardinal TV voice, Chip Caray from Miami, next on 101 ESPN. Hey, Gloria Lou can do some amazing things as the best real estate selling agent in the area. What if I told you that you could sell your home, get the cash, and stay in the home for up to 12 months while you find or build your next home? Gloria Lou is able to do that. She's able to eliminate the traditional hassles of buying and selling at the same time so that you can sell your home, get the money, and stay in the home for up to 12 months. This is something that Gloria Lou is able to do because she has figured it out. Over 20 years of experience as a great agent. And with Gloria Lou, with Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty, you should call for something like that. Her number is 314-325-6888, 314-325-6888, and Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty is the name of the business. Gloria's mastered the home selling promise by guaranteeing upfront and in writing that she'll sell your home at your agreed-to price and time frame, or she'll buy it herself, and that's guaranteed. Does your agent compare? Likely not. Get in touch with Gloria Lou, the best agent in the area, 314-325-6888, on the web at gloriahasthebuyers.com. BK is in for Brooke. I'm Randy, and we head to sunny Florida, where the TV voice of the Cardinals, Chip Caray, is standing by. Cardinals getting ready to take on the Marlins in the opener of a series tonight in Miami. Chip, good morning. How you doing?
I'm doing great, guys. How are you?
Good. Hey, I haven't checked in on you on your ankle lately. How are you feeling physically?
I'm fantastic. I'm 100%. I'm on a hot girl walk without any hot girls today. So everything is functioning as it should. Thank goodness.
Is this a beach hot girl walk, or are you just South Beach, or what are you doing?
No, we're in Key Biscayne, so there's a cool state park right down the street from our hotel. It has a beautiful lighthouse and some view of stilted houses that were bootlegger homes and places of gambling and ill repute back during Prohibition that are about a mile off the shore. So it's a beautiful walk about a mile from the hotel. Do a quick loop, check out the boats, the beautiful turquoise water on a cloudy day, and then head back and get ready for the game.
Nice.
Chip, Friday night was as fired up as I've heard you on a Cardinals broadcast since you took over as the play-by-play voice. Is that about as much fun as you've had broadcasting a Cardinals game?
It was great, right? Big stakes, big crowd, arch rivalry. Cardinals on a windy day, wanting to see something happen in a game that you figured was going to be dominated by pitching, and defense was going to be hugely important. And who was going to be the hero? I don't think anybody in America had Pedro Pages being the hitting star for the Cardinals in the three-game series against the Cubs. But the emotion of that moment for him, his first Major League homer in a game that was so tight, so late, was awesome. The Cardinals defensively had one of their, if not their best game of the year with the gloves, and needed to. To run your record at 3-0 against the Cubs and start the weekend off the right way at Wrigley was awesome and a lot of fun. I hope folks at home enjoyed it as much as we did.
Hey, Chip, as we know, the Cardinals got their 3 new starting pitchers and kept Miles Michaelis with the hope that they could get innings. And, man, recently they really have been able to protect their bullpen because of that starting pitching.
Yeah, for the most part, they've been able to do that. Miles has been great. His last 6 outings, I think his ERA is about 2.5. He's taken the ball deep. He's made some mechanical adjustments. He's slightly changed his arm angle. He's getting more single on the ball. He's keeping the ball on the ground, which, again, at Wrigley Field on a day like yesterday is remarkably important. He was awesome. But you're right. Miles now with the other big three, that gives the Cardinals 4 guys that are giving you consistency on a day-to-day basis, which does help you protect your bullpen. And, look, let's face it, Andre Palante's been pretty good in his 4 starts. He would tell you there's room for improvement, and I agree with him. But by and large, as the 5th guy, he's giving you a chance to get the game into the middle innings in your bullpen with the lead. And so far from that end, it's been good, too. So you're right. The starting pitching's been excellent. The bullpen's been great. And that's a far cry, as you know, from what we saw last year.
Chip, they've got Sonny Gray on the mound tonight, and he was awesome in his most recent start after he said himself, hey, I'm trending in the wrong direction. I got to get back to the basics. What did you see from him that worked so well against Pittsburgh?
One, and throw the ball down the middle and let it work to the corners. That's Sonny Gray at his best. He's a guy that's going to throw every pitch maximum effort. He's going to throw it with maximum spin. And if he tries to start the ball on the corners and get chase, more often than not, the pitch is recognized as being on the outer half of the plate, and it'll probably go away from the strike zone. I think he and Pages looked really, really good the other day. Pedro set up right down the middle of the plate and let the ball do its magic, and it worked out very well. So, simplicity is usually the best way to fix a glaring problem, and I think Sonny addressed it. Throw it down the middle, let it spin, trust your stuff, and let the defense behind you work.
A lot of work for Pages over the course of the last week. What have you thought of him?
Excellent. Terrific receiver. The first game in Chicago, we tracked it. He stole 12 strikes. Think about that. That's 4 outs in a major league game. That's huge. When you talk about protecting your starters and getting length out of them and protecting your bullpen, that's hugely important. He's an excellent defender. He can control the running game. No offense to Ivan Herrera, but that's a weakness in his game. He doesn't throw particularly well. He can hit. And Pedro's emergence as a reliable defense-first catcher allows you to use Herrera as a DH and get to that right-handed bat that we've all been craving for the last couple of weeks. So the kid's growth is remarkable. The pitchers love throwing to him. The results speak for themselves, and it wouldn't surprise me if you see him catch an awful lot more until Contreras comes back in a week or two.
Chip Caray is our guest here on 101 ESPN. And Chip, you mentioned the name that I wanted to get to next, Willson Contreras. I want to take you back to May 7th, about 5 weeks ago. You see him get hit. We saw what happened afterwards. They announced the injury. If I had told you on May 7th, hey, Willson Contreras by mid-June is going to be out on a rehab assignment, your reaction would have been what?
Very surprised because it was a bad fracture and they had to put a plate in there to fix the bone. Surprised. But it doesn't surprise me in that this guy's a competitor and wants to be out there and wants to win and wants to play and wants to be a part of something special with the Cardinals. The guy's a gamer, and he's a very quiet, I think, stoic leader on the team who earned an awful lot of respect for all that he went through last year. And I think Cardinal Nation would all agree. We can't wait to see him back in the batter's box doing damage against National League pitching. And who knows, maybe that'll be in a couple of weeks. As Ali has quipped, I think he's going to start a rehab tomorrow, and Ali said he'll probably call me after the game Tuesday night asking to come back. So I don't know if it'll be that quick, but you love the fact that guy's that dedicated for sure.
And Chip, with guys coming back, the Cardinals' next 20 games, we've got these 3 at Florida, then the Giants, 1 at Alabama, and then a couple of here. Then you've got the Braves and the Reds here before heading out on the road at the beginning of July before the All-Star break at Pittsburgh, at Washington. That's 20 games, and only 3 of those against Atlanta are against a team that you'd say, okay, they're a playoff contender. I'm kind of thinking if the Cardinals could go 14-6, 15-5 over these next 20, play 500 the rest of the season, I'd take my chances with that.
Well, that would be great. We can't look that far ahead. We try to win today and then see where that takes you. But I think what's been tantamount in baseball, look, we talked about it earlier this month, the Cardinals are in a stretch of 19 straight games against teams under 500. Well, we were one of those teams too. So, it's not like the Cardinals are the Yankees or the Phillies with that kind of a record right now. So anything can happen on any given day. But I think what's been really fun about this team is that, okay, they have a little tailspin. They drop 3 out of 4. They come back and they win 3 out of 4 or 5, 6, and get themselves steadied back again. And that goes back to your point about the pitching. They give you a chance to win every day. The offense still hasn't clicked the way that we'd like to. And I think if you combine the pitching that we have and the growth that we're seeing from some of the other guys besides the big 3 in the bullpen, and the imminent return of Contreras and Nootbaar and Edman, well, you have the makings of something that could be really, really fun to watch here over the final 80, 90 games of the season. That's what we're counting on, and that's what we hope to see. And you've got to give credit to all the young guys who've held the ship together while those big three guys have missed a lot of time.
Chip, I don't know if you've looked at any All-Star ballots yet and tried to kind of go through, hey, who could make which team and where. But when I look down at the OPSs of some of the guys across the sport, it's like, man, I guess that's going to be my option here. And you look up, and the Major League average OPS is 700 on the season. Do you have any theories as to why offense is so low this year, coming off of a year where offense actually had a bit of a rebound?
Well, I think because pitching has so far leapt far ahead of hitting. I counseled about that before the game, and everybody that I've talked to, Paul Goldschmidt, Nolan Arenado, I've asked them, is hitting now harder than it was when you played, or in the case of Goldie and Nolan 7-8 years ago? And they said definitely it is. The pitch labs have been remarkable. They're creating mad scientist pitchers who have created new pitch shapes, the tunneling effect, the ability of high spin, high velocity with everything. And now you're seeing guys throwing splitters, a pitch that disappeared from our game 35 years ago. Those guys have made tremendous leaps forward, and it takes time for the hitters to catch up. I think they will, but it's not going to be overnight because so many guys now can throw 95 or higher in our game. High velocity is hard to hit, and we're seeing that as far as the batting average is concerned. It's the lowest since the mound was lowered after 68. Your point about the OPS is exactly right. Teams aren't slugging the way that they used to because, let's face it, the pitching is really, really good, and as I've said so many times on our broadcast, I'm surprised anybody ever gets a hit when you see balls with 28-inch vertical drop. Throwing 97 miles an hour. It's really remarkable that anybody's able to make contact, but somehow they find a way to do it.
Hey, Chip, before we let you go, you are such a big baseball fan. How excited are you about doing the game at Rickwood Field or being around the game, at least at Rickwood Field on Thursday?
Yeah, that's a national telecast. I'm excited about it. When you think about what the players in the Negro Leagues went through in the segregation in our sport and the great stars of that league who got a chance to be showcased in their league, and now their records are enmeshed with Major League Baseball. So I think it's wonderful. It's going to be a great celebration of the remarkable career of Willie Mays and all the wonderful players who played in that stadium. I think Major League Baseball, our sport has its warts just like all of them, but these special events are not one of them. Major League Baseball usually does a tremendous job with them, and I can't wait to see what kind of a celebration of our sport and the inclusivity that it represents for Major League Baseball will show us on Thursday in Birmingham, Alabama. There'll just be too many Alabama fans for my liking, but we can get past that.
Exactly. Says the guy that attended the University of Georgia. There you go.
Exactly.
Chip, always good to have you with us. Thanks so much for the time. We appreciate it. Have a great time in Miami, and we'll see you next week.
Okay, guys. Take care. See you soon.
Take care. Chip Caray, TV voice of the Cardinals, here on 101 ESPN. That will be cool to watch the game at Rickwood Field.
I'm legitimately excited about it, Randy. I think baseball has done a really good job with these kinds of events where you had it at the Little Leagues, you had it in the Field of Dreams game, and now you've got this. Baseball's done a good job of taking the game abroad as well, going over to Korea, having the game in Mexico City. The one last year that they took
London,
with the Cardinals in London, I'm impressed by what they've been able to do. I didn't know if Rob Manfred would be capable of pulling off something like this, but credit where it's due. They've done a good job with these events.
That's BK. I'm Randy. Coming up, the Cardinals are really hot, and we might not even realize it. BK is going to tell you how hot they are next on 101 ESPN. Hey, guys, it's a Monday morning, and maybe you had a busy weekend, a busy Father's Day, and maybe you're a little fatigued because of that. But if you're fatigued every morning, you might have an issue with low T, as every guy does. And that's why you should get it with Mentality, because with Mentality, they can get you back to competing at work and sports like you did years ago. Your life is a competition, and you need every edge you can get in today's marketplace. So don't let age be an excuse to settle for second best. Go to Mentality at lowtusa.com. You can find out what they do. Make an appointment at one of their great facilities, either in Chesterfield or South County. Their board-certified physicians are going to do a complete panel on your blood work, and they're going to find out where your testosterone level is. And then with an FDA-approved testosterone treatment, they'll restore your testosterone level. You'll go back for treatments weekly, and like thousands of guys in St. Louis, you'll feel much better every single week. Low energy and motivation, fatigue, tired all the time, goes by the wayside when you get your testosterone level back because of Mentality. Get started today. Go to lowtusa.com and tell them Randy sent you.
This is Rocky with your Sports Center update, driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Following their win over the Chicago Cubs, the Cardinals will head down to Miami as they start a series against the Marlins later today. Also, over the weekend, not so much good news for St. Louis City SC as they get shut out again. This time it's by Dallas FC. They lose 2-0. They also lose Celio Pompeu to an ankle injury during the game. That is your Sports Center update, driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
This is what it looks like when you've got an average baseball team. They're going to beat up on some teams. They're going to lose to others that they should.
That is exactly the way the National League is set up. That's BK. I'm Randy, and this is the opening drive. BK in for Brooke this morning. And BK, the Cardinals' next 20 games are against teams that are below them in the standings. The last time they played a team that was above them in the standings was Philadelphia, back on the 2nd of this month. So from the 2nd until now, and they just completed the series against the Cubs, they've gone 2 full weeks without playing a team above them in the standings, and now they're going to go 3 more weeks without playing a team above them in the standings.
Yeah, this is the National League that you're a part of right now. Is you look around and you're like, okay, so we've got the Braves coming up, but other than that, not a whole lot that intimidates you. And I remember early on in the season, I remember listening to you guys' show, and it was just like a month in, and you guys were talking about the Phillies, and Dan was like, yeah, but they haven't played anybody yet. It's like, yeah, they haven't played anybody yet because who is there to play?
Right. Yep.
Like, there's only a couple of teams in the league. It kind of feels like when you have previous versions of the Pac-12, and you had USC that was this just behemoth. Mm-hmm. And they have like 3 games a year that matter. And the ACC is this way to a degree now with Clemson, right? And you had Clemson, and they were awesome. But they played like 2 games that would determine the outcome of their season because there was nobody else that was a legitimate contender from the league. And that's the National League today, where you look around and you're like, okay, Brewers are good, Phillies are good, Dodgers are good. Other than that, though, like even the Braves, Randy, they're without like half of their rotation, and they have one guy that is hitting in Marcell Ozuna. Everybody else is underperforming relative to expectations.
And you're missing your best pitcher and your best hitter.
Yeah, right? And so you look at the Cardinals, and I've had a lot of blowback because I bring up what their record has been lately, and they have the best record in the National League since Mother's Day. They've won 20 of their last 31 games, and people are like, yeah, but who have they beat, BK? Well, like they're not playing against good teams. Well, you play who's on your schedule. And the Cardinals have done better by playing the teams that are on their schedule than anybody else in the league has over a month. Mm-hmm. This is not a small sample size any longer. And so we have to start looking at them, and the results eventually have to matter, Randy. I have to look at this and say, they're finding ways to win. They're not hitting right now at all, but the rotation has been so good that they've been able to overcome their lack of hitting. Has anybody noticed that Nolan Gorman went into this massive slump again? Because he's been terrible for like a week and a half now. He's like 3 for his last 33 or something, and one of those hits was a homer, but otherwise he's striking out like a 50% rate, has 0 walks in this stretch of games. Nolan Arenado, Paul Goldschmidt look like they did again at the beginning of the season. And it's not matter.
No.
Because their rotation is pitching well, they're playing better defense again, and they're beating the team that's in front of them. That's the task at hand.
We talk about good teams. Philadelphia's really, really talented. They've got a great starting rotation. They've got a really solid bullpen, and they can hit. The Dodgers, even with the injury to Betts, they're going to be fine. They've got a major league pitching staff on the IL, a staff that would take the place of everybody on probably half the teams in baseball that's injured right now. And eventually they'll get some of those guys back. And the Brewers are solid, but I don't think the Brewers are exceptionally talented. I think the only 2 really talented, well put together units in the league are Philly and the Dodgers. And then the whole mishmash, I mean, the Cardinals, Padres, Diamondbacks, Giants. By the way, I think the Nationals are kind of outperforming their talent, being at 35 and 36. Pirates are okay. I thought the Reds would be better. I thought the Cubs would be better. There's a lot of teams out there that are not outperforming their talent. And I think, especially with the Cardinals starting rotation, based upon what we thought when the season started, I think they are outperforming their talent. And I hate to give credit to Robert Blake, but I'm going to. He's done a really good job with this staff.
I think the Cardinals have done a good job of getting more than what you would otherwise expect out of a lot of these players. And you look at where they were at this point last year, because I think this is what's happening, Randy. I think a lot of Cardinals fans are just... Is it the Robert Blake? Is that what did it for you?
I'm just trying to think of the last person who gave credit to Robert Blake. I think was it the son of Sam?
Well done.
I don't know that that's exactly the comparison that you'd like to have for you, Randy, but hey, welcome to Monday morning on the opening drive. You know, Randy, serial killers, it's all the same. This time last year, the Cardinals were 27 and 43.
Yeah.
This is not the same team, guys. Like they went through a lot of injuries at around this time, and they weren't pitching well, and they didn't have the offense, and it just cratered. Well, and they never recovered from it. And I wondered, Randy, coming off of, I think it was that Cubs series, the Cardinals played really well, and it was like, okay, but they don't have Steven Matz. You've got all these injuries that you're dealing with. Is this win? We see that. We just had that 12 of 15 games. You played well. You had one of those at one point last year early on in the season as well, and then things went south. That didn't happen this year. They didn't crater. They avoided the massive landslide. And so I think this is just a different team. Yeah. And eventually we have to say this is no longer you can't compare the 2 seasons anymore. Now let's just judge them on their merits of who they've been in 2024. And they, I think, are the 2nd best team in this division. And I believe the 4th best team in the National League right now.
And the offense, I think we can all agree, has been well below average. So you have to give credit to the pitching, starting pitching, and the bullpen. And here we are with a team that's missing, out of your 9 starting hitters, you're missing your starting outfield from opening day, right? Newt Barr, what was supposed to be your starting outfield. Newt Barr, it was supposed to be Edman, and then it was Victor Scott, and then Walker in right field. And you're missing your catcher. So you're missing half the group. There's a reason that at least... I'll say it's an excuse for the offense not being what it can be. But I do think the offense can be better. I think that and Burleson has been a revelation, but they're going to get hitters back at some point, especially Contreras, and I believe the offense will improve.
I think we then have to go back to that Waino audio, which is if you are better than you were last year, and this is an even mediocre and more paltry NL than it was last year, well, then I think there is a fair argument of why fans would be angry if they sit back and don't go get a number 2 starter, because it feels like now if you went and got a number 2 starter, you'd be cruising pretty nicely to a playoff spot, if not maybe contending for the actual division with the Brewers, come August and September.
Yeah, I know people get mad at the Cardinals for being a middling team, and I'm right there with you guys. Like I said all offseason, this team is missing a number 2 starter. They have a clear donut hole inside of their rotation where, okay, you got somebody at the front end, you got a lot of guys at the back end. What about the number 2? And you didn't have that. You still don't have that today. And yet there's an opening. There's an opening in the National League for somebody to be able to run through it right now. The Braves are not what we thought they were going to be. They are not as dominant as they have been in previous seasons. They don't have Ronald Acuna Jr. He ain't coming through that door. The Dodgers, while really, really, really good, we have no idea what Mookie Betts is going to come back from this injury. Like, I always worry with hands and wrists. And when you have a kind of injury like this, you don't know what the power is going to be like whenever he does return. And that rotation is always an injury or two away from breaking once you get into the postseason. How many times have we seen that from the Dodgers in recent seasons? So it's just the Phillies, basically, and you get one injury there, and suddenly it's like, okay, a weird game happens, and you're a game away now from being able to take them down in a 3-game set. There's an opening for the Cardinals. I would like to see them be aggressive, but it requires them to prove to Mo the way that Army always talks about. The team can dictate what I do at the deadline. Army always says that. And if you're the Cardinals and you're one of those players and you hear that audio from Waino, for example, and you're one of the players that wants them to get a number 2 starter, well, show them. This is the time when you can make that kind of a move. If you win 13 of the next 20, now is when you can go out there and prove to your president of baseball operations this team is worthy of legitimate investment, and that'll be right around the time where teams start making legitimate calls about trading for a starter that can help you once you get into the postseason.
The team that we need to have absolutely crash and burn before the deadline is the Houston Astros. Because they have a wealth of pitching. One of my favorites is going to be a free agent after next year, Framber Valdez. And I wonder what they'll do. I know that Jim Crane he's spent a lot of money in the past. He's not as enthusiastic about that now. And they've got some young pitching on the way. I wonder, with 1 year left of Valdez, if they're out of the race, if they might be willing to move him.
That's a team that the Mets are another that I've been looking at. I don't know what they're going to do at the deadline. They feel like the exact kind of a team that could do a Brewers, where it's like, hey, we're still kind of in it. And then they're like, but Pete Alonso is going to be a free agent. Let's go ahead and trade him now. Let's get it out in front of this. Severino, gone. Quintana, gone. Minaya, gone. And I could see one of those 3 being the types of starters, better or worse, that the Cardinals decide to add at the deadline.
I can totally see that.
Severino feels very Cardinals-y to me.
Yeah, he does. It's a great
He feels
call.
like the exact kind of guy that the Cardinals do not want to sign in the offseason because there's too much risk involved, even if there's upside involved.
Having a good year.
You get to the deadline, it's like, okay, he has emerged. That's the right-handed option with some swing and miss stuff that we want to put in as our number 2 starter.
I could totally see that. That's BK. I'm Randy. This is the opening drive. Coming up, we're going to head down the stretch with Rocc and Roll here on 101 ESPN. Hey, we have had a sea change in athletic facilities for people with disabilities in the St. Louis metro area. There's been little opportunity for youth and adults with disabilities to play baseball and other sports. But now the Gateway Region YMCA has partnered with Cardinals Care and the Boniface Foundation on construction of a state-of-the-art adaptive sports complex that includes a Miracle League baseball field, inclusive playground, and multipurpose field so kids and adults with disabilities can play sports. And working with the Cardinals, the Y has announced that the field is named the Paul Goldschmidt Field. As part of the work as a nonprofit, the Y provides comprehensive adaptive support services to more than 1,000 individuals annually. The new facility will be a game changer and enables the Y to expand programming specifically for sports for individuals with disabilities. And the Y wants you to know that you can help out. It's not too late to become a founding donor and leave a lasting legacy. The Y has launched its community fundraising phase, and while every gift counts, there are some really cool recognition opportunities starting at just $500 for you or your company. Consider making sports available for all so that children with disabilities can play ball and experience the joys of being on a team. Visit GWRYMCA.org. Gateway Region, that's GWRYMCA.org.
Let's rock. Let's rock today.
It is time for Rock and Roll, and here is Matthew Rocchio.
We didn't get to mention this in the show, but Brandon Kiley pointed this out in one of our earlier breaks. Manuel Veth, who you need to follow if you are a St. Louis City fan, by the way. He has all the transfer news, and it's very good reporting. He's you know how we always talk about the guys at The Athletic. This guy's locks it in like they do. None of the flimsy stuff you see in a lot of soccer reporting. So if you can, follow Manuel Veth on Twitter. And earlier today, sources, Crew 96 are in talks to acquire all-for City talented midfielder Aziel Jackson. The deal to see United States men's national team talent join Columbus is, however, still in the early stages. The reasons why this is really interesting is because over the weekend, also Manuel Veth reported that St. Louis City was in talks to sign St. Pauli midfielder / attacker, and that's over in the Bundesliga. His name's Marcel Hartl. He had 17 goals and 12 assists for St. Pauli this year as he was their catalyst as they earned promotion from the second Bundesliga to the regular Bundesliga. So they are in talks to bring him over. And here's the deal: Crew 96 own his rights, essentially the discovery rights for the player, and so you have to pay them. Around the going rate has been about $350,000 in general allocation money. So you have to pay them for those discovery rights. So Crew holds the discovery rights. You then pay them for the discovery rights for Marcel Hartl, who plays attacking midfield. You bring him in, and then the guy who conceivably would get pushed almost completely, I think, out of the depth chart and not just down it, would be an attacking midfielder, Aziel Jackson, who's struggling this year. Jackson, by the way, last year had 25 games played, 12 starts, over 1,100 minutes, and had 1 goal and 4 assists last season. In this season, he's at 16 games, 8 starts. Those were all to start this season. He has not started any of the last 8 games. He's at 800 minutes, and he's at 0 goals and 0 assists. So he's been struggling this year. So the idea then is you pay Crew the money for the discovery rights for Hartle, and then you ship A.Z. Jackson to Crew, probably for some general allocation money to then recoup.
So it offsets some of the money.
It offsets a little bit. It can't all be done in one move. You actually have to buy the discovery rights and then trade AZL in two completely different moves. But essentially, you can kind of think of the moves as really well being linked. And the funniest part about this is that Crew was everyone talks about how Crew was locked in to get this guy, hence why they had his discovery rights. But Crew, because they've had a lot of success, has lost some key people in their front office over the last couple months, and apparently just let this one kind of slip through the cracks. And so City could be getting a very dynamic player because of that, but of course also losing one of the original City guys from the inaugural season.
Well, you got to just try to get better all the time, right? And Lutz certainly would know what's going on over at Bundesliga.
Yeah, he's got a really good tie-in to the German players, and we already got a texter when this earlier than they were asking, is Hartle a better player than Klaus? And I would say just if you look at their run, Hartle hasn't been a dominant player in Bundesliga. When he gets then sent down to second Bundesliga, he does become a more dominant player. But I think that when you look at the level of MLS play, it's probably somewhere between second Bundesliga and Bundesliga, probably closer to the second. So he can be I think a very effective player for them, and I think he will be a little bit more of a dynamic player than Klaus. I'm not saying that just because Klaus has lost some of the shine. I think Hartle is a dynamic player. It's funny, he's more of an attacking, scoring midfielder, while Klaus is more of a passing, playmaking striker. So it kind of seems like they'd be almost perfect combinations in that they both kind of do something outsized from their position that other positions usually do well. And so when you kind of combine unicorns, that usually fits better than combining a guy who's a little bit weird with another like standard player. You get two guys who are kind of weird in great ways, and I actually think that's the best combination.
Just score goals, man. That's all I care about. If this helps them score more goals, then I'm all for it.
Just score goals. And speaking of scoring, speaking of winning, something's going to have to break and change in the NBA Finals. This was my favorite stat coming out of that ridiculousness from Game 4, and that was history is going to be made one way or another. No NBA team has ever won a series after going down 0-3, and no NBA team has ever won a series after losing by 38-plus points in a finals game. So one way or another, one of these two things is going down. Do you guys think the Mavericks are going to keep this interesting and force a Game 6?
I would not be surprised by that, but I would be surprised if they would win the series.
That'd be shocking.
I think it's going to end in 5. I think this is when it ends. I think Kyrie looked like a different player in Dallas compared to what he looked like in Boston. I'll be curious to see. I think the crowd affected him going back to Boston. They were on him from start to finish in those first couple of games, and I would not be surprised if that happens once again in this one. So I think the Celtics win, and I think they ended in 5. But if they don't, it'll be because Kyrie proved me wrong, and he has a really good game.
Well, BK, you made the point earlier. It's beyond Luka and Kyrie, the young guys, the centers. They just look different in Boston in the first 2 games than they did even in the loss in Game 3 in Dallas. Those guys, they aren't grizzled veterans yet in the NBA, and it's kind of like baseball. It's a different game when you get to each playoff round is more intense and it's more difficult for guys like that.
Yeah, your supporting cast typically plays much better at home than it does on the road. And Dallas' supporting cast in Game 4 played really well. They finally hit their open shots, and that was their issue for the first few games of the series. What you saw from them against Oklahoma City and again against Minnesota, the secondary pieces, not named Doncic, not named Irving, they were seemingly hitting every open 3, especially from the corner. Didn't happen the first 3 games of the series. It did in Game 4. I don't expect that to happen in Game 5 in Boston because now you're going back on the road where, once again, it is a bit more difficult to show up in that spot. So.
And Kristaps Porzingis is going to try to go tonight, try to go in pregame. He did practice yesterday lightly. And
even if he can give them like 12 minutes, it's huge. Such a boost because it just takes a guy out of their rotation that they just don't want to have out there.
So it'll be fun tonight. You can hear it here on 101 ESPN. Game 5, Celtics and Mavericks, 6:30 pregame. And then tomorrow night, Game 5 between the Panthers and the Oilers, the Stanley Cup Finals. And we'll see, same thing. Can the Oilers supporting cast go on the road in a hostile environment and win a win or else game?
Not holding my breath on that one at all. I think that was their last stand. I think they had one more in them, and they were not going to be swept out of that series. I like that this is going to 5. I also like that Florida could potentially end it on home ice.
Yeah.
I think it'd be cool for them to be able to do it. A place that is not generally thought of as a hockey hotbed in South Florida, and they've become that. It's a really good crowd. The games are super entertaining to watch there. They're into it. Matthew Tkachuk has completely changed what that organization is all about. They play it the quote-unquote right way. I think they finish this one in 5 as well.
And now that state has 5 consecutive Stanley Cup Finals appearances, so they are a hotbed now.
That's insane.
I wonder if people like going there because, I don't know, tax reasons?
That's a good reason.
The weather's nice.
Weather's nice.
What? Okay.
Yeah.
If you're young and like 24, not married.
I think Matthew's people might have told him things like this, yeah.
One last thing. This is actually breaking news. ESPN's Adam Rittenberg reporting former LSU coach Les Miles today filed a lawsuit against LSU alleging the school's decision to vacate the wins his teams attained have cost him the chance for College Football Hall of Fame qualification. The news release called it, quote unquote, an irrational and unfair self-inflicted punishment. Miles' lawsuit also lists the NCAA and the National Football Foundation, which manages the Hall of Fame, as defendants. His longtime agent, George Bass, said LSU, quote unquote, promised us help in undoing this injustice and then, quote unquote, went back on its word.
Oh, no.
It's shocking.
Maybe they saw the evidence. I don't know.
Les Miles is one of the most ridiculous figures of college football for like 20 years. It's amazing.
He owes so much back pay to Nick Saban.
Yes, he does.
Oh, yeah.
So much back pay to Nick Saban.
Yeah.
Like, when you look back at some of the people that have been either promoted or stayed at a place longer than they should have, you look back, you're like, man, how did that happen? And a lot of it comes back to, well, Tom Brady existed, Peyton Manning existed, and Les Miles and Nick Saban existed.
Yeah.
So many guys across college football. It's those 3 individuals that got them paid.
Yep. And
Think about Charlie Weiss.
Yeah, right.
The amount of money that man made.
Miles was going to go to Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Michigan people found out that somebody from Michigan had said it, and Miles found out about it. So he calls a press conference and says, I'm not going to Michigan.
The thing I'll never forget about Les Miles is when he put up a list of players that were going to the NFL draft who didn't practice hard enough.
Yeah.
The weight room stuff.
That was like,
it's like 20.
Dude, what are you doing?
Like
that was such a weird move, in my opinion. Like, saying that stuff in the back doors to coaches when they call you, hey, what's this kid's work ethic? Standard issue.
Yeah.
Just throwing it up on the weight room door like I'm telling every NFL team you're terrible.
And in the media. It was up for the media to see at their pro day. Whoa, dude.
That's an insane move, and kind of I had fun with Les Miles as the character he was before that. I was like, nah, I'm kind of done with you after that one.
Yeah. And then he went,
now this.
With all due respect, he went to KU, which was great.
Yeah.
Enjoyed that.
Yeah.
Sure did enjoy that. Now KU's got another guy that I don't like nearly as much.
I'm with you.
This guy scares me a little
Stop
bit.
hiring competent coaches.
Yeah, right. Great job today by our producer, audio, video engineer, the one, the only Matthew Rocchio. Thank you, sir.
Pleasure.
BK, great to have you in. Thank you.
Thank you. This is great, Randy.
Good to work with you.
Enjoyed
It was
doing
fun.
it. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, everybody.
And happy, again, belated first Father's Day. That was
Thank you.
Pretty awesome.
Thank you.
Good for you.
That's great.
We have a balloon party with, is it T-Mac and Ajax coming up?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Okay, good. We never know.
Member guests don't play on Monday.
Okay, that's what I was wondering. If it's a nice day for golf. And then after that, we've got BK and Ferrario minus BK. So is somebody else in there along with Tanner?
I think Grant's in today, so it'll be T-Bone and Alex, and then they've got Grant in. I'm going to be down at the Doug Armstrong. He's holding a little bit of a press availability this morning, so I'm going to be out there. I think they will be able to have a lot of that audio for you today on BK and Ferrario, so stay tuned for that.
Beautiful. And then we have the Fast Lane from 2 to 6 before Game 5 between the Celtics and Mavericks tonight. We thank you for tuning in, texting in, and being a part of the show for all of us. Until tomorrow morning at 7. Have a magnificent Monday, St. Louis.
Bring gas.
Hey, if you are a business owner or a CEO or a CFO, I've got something you don't want to miss. On Thursday, June 27th, NetSuite by Oracle is hosting a day-long event at Union Station Hotel downtown. It's called Business Grows Here, and it's set up to help you grow your business. You can spend the day learning from more than a half dozen speakers on stage, and they'll share their wisdom and their insights. And one of those speakers will be Jamie Siminoff, the founder of Ring Video Doorbell, who started a new company